Have you ever noticed that the harder you chase something, the further it seems to slip away? You chase love, and it runs from you. You chase success, and it hides. You chase happiness, and somehow it feels emptier than before. But here's the secret. In Buddhism, true peace is found not in chasing, but in letting go. Because when you release your grip, when you stop running after what you think you need, life has a mysterious way of bringing exactly what is meant for you. Imagine how different your life would feel if you trusted that what is yours will always find its way to you, without force, without fear, without chasing. Today, let's uncover the powerful truth that everything comes when you stop chasing, and how letting go opens the door for blessings to flow naturally into your life. 1. Desire is a trap that breeds suffering. In Buddhism, there is a powerful teaching that craving, what is called tanha, is the very root of suffering. This craving is not just wanting something, it is the restless, burning desire that makes you feel incomplete until you get what you are chasing. When we chase after something with desperation, we are not simply moving toward a goal. We are creating resistance in our own lives. It's like trying to hold water in your hands. If you gently cup your palms, some water stays, but if you squeeze too hard, it escapes even faster. The more tightly you grip, the more it slips away. Think about this in your own life. How many times have you wanted something so badly that you lost your peace over it? Maybe it was a job you were desperate to get, so much so that the rejection felt like your entire world was crumbling. Or perhaps it was a relationship where you clung to the other person, afraid to let them breathe, only to find that the more you chased them, the further they pulled away. Or maybe it was recognition, praise, success, or validation that you demanded from others, only to feel more hollow when you finally got it. The truth is, the more we chase, the more restless and dissatisfied we become. Buddhism explains this cycle clearly. Craving leads to attachment, attachment leads to expectation, and unmet expectations lead to suffering. Even when we do achieve what we chase, the satisfaction rarely lasts. You might finally buy that thing you longed for, but after a while, the excitement fades and a new desire takes its place. This cycle is endless because the human mind always believes happiness is just one more step away. That is why desire is called a trap. It promises happiness but leaves us empty-handed. When we learn to let go of this constant chasing, something amazing happens. We stop living like beggars at the door of life, asking for scraps of happiness. Instead, we discover peace in the present moment. Letting go doesn't mean you stop having goals or dreams. It means you stop attaching your worth and happiness to them. You do your best, you walk your path, but you are not broken if things don't go exactly your way. This is the lesson. Desire makes us restless, always pulling us forward into a future that never arrives, but letting go gives us the freedom to live right here, right now. The cycle of disappointment ends the moment you stop believing that happiness lives in the next thing you chase. 2. Letting go invites life to flow naturally. Life itself has a rhythm, a natural current, just like a river flowing through the mountains. When you stop chasing and allow yourself to trust that current, life begins to carry you exactly where you need to go. The problem is, most of us don't know how to trust. We feel as though we must control everything, push harder, plan every detail, and make life bend to our will. But the truth is, the more we fight against the current, the more exhausted we become. Imagine being in a river. If you thrash your arms, kick your legs wildly, and try to swim against the direction of the water, you will quickly tire yourself out, and in the end, you go nowhere. But if you lean back, allow yourself to float, and move with the current, the river will carry you effortlessly. You reach places without strain, and often you arrive somewhere more beautiful than you imagined. This is the power of letting go. By releasing the need to force outcomes, you allow life to open doors you could not have opened with your own hands. This is what Buddhism calls non-attachment. Non-attachment doesn't mean indifference. It doesn't mean you give up on your goals or stop caring about your life. It means you approach life with open hands instead of clenched fists. You can work toward your dreams, but you don't strangle them with desperation. You can love people fully, but you don't chain them down with fear of loss. You can enjoy what you have, but you don't cling to it as if it must last forever. By loosening your grip, you actually make more space for good things to enter. Think of the times in your life when something came to you without effort. Maybe it was a friendship that blossomed naturally without you forcing it. Maybe it was an opportunity that appeared when you were no longer stressing about it. Those moments felt light and easy, didn't they? That is what life is meant to feel like. But when you chase, you create resistance, and resistance blocks the natural flow of blessings. The wisdom here is clear. When you let go, you move with life rather than against it. You stop wasting energy on forcing outcomes and instead allow the universe to deliver what was always meant for you. Letting go does not mean doing nothing. It means doing your part, then surrendering the rest. It means understanding that you don't need to push the river. It already flows. 3. The right things do not need force. One of the greatest truths that Buddhism teaches us is that what is truly meant for you will never require you to lose yourself in the process of chasing it. Anything that demands you to constantly beg, compromise your peace, or twist your identity until you no longer recognize yourself is not truly yours. This lesson can be difficult to accept because the mind is always restless. It tells us, if you try harder, if you push more, if you sacrifice everything, then maybe it will work. But the reality is, forcing something that resists you only creates suffering. Think about a locked door. You may stand in front of it and push, pull, and even hurt yourself trying to break it open. But if it is not your door, no amount of force will make it open for you. Yet, somewhere else, another door is unlocked, waiting quietly for you to notice it. The right things in life work the same way. They may require effort, patience, and commitment, but they will not demand that you destroy your inner peace. They will not feel like constant resistance. This is where the Buddhist idea of karma comes in, not as punishment or reward, but as alignment. Your intentions, actions, and inner state create the conditions for what enters your life. When your mind is filled with desperation and fear, you attract more struggle. But when your heart is calm and your actions are guided by sincerity, the opportunities and relationships that match that energy naturally come to you. It's not magic, it's harmony. The right things resonate with who you truly are. Think about relationships. A bond that is real will not require you to constantly prove your worth. A friend or partner who is truly meant for you will accept your presence without demanding that you pretend, perform, or beg for attention. When love is forced, it suffocates. When love is natural, it breathes freely. Or think about work. The right job or calling may challenge you, yes, but it will also align with your talents and values. It will not drain you until you are a shell of yourself. It will energize you because it fits who you are becoming. When you stop forcing, you also stop betraying yourself. You no longer spend your days pretending to be someone else to gain acceptance, and you no longer chase recognition from people who will never truly see you. Instead, you learn to trust that what belongs to you will arrive when you are ready, and it will fit without endless struggle. The truth is, life has a way of showing us when something is not ours. If you are constantly anxious, drained, or unhappy while pursuing something, that may be a sign it is not aligned with you. Forcing it will not bring peace. It will only deepen your suffering. But when something is truly right, even if it takes time, it flows with ease. There may be challenges along the way, but they will feel purposeful, not empty. The wisdom is simple. The right things do not need force. What is truly yours will not feel like a battlefield every single day. It will come together naturally, not because you chased it endlessly, but because you were ready for it. Your role is not to force, but to become the person who can receive what is meant for you. And when you are aligned, the right things find you, without the struggle, without the begging, without the endless fight. 4. Inner stillness attracts outer fulfillment. There is a simple truth about life. When your mind is restless, everything around you feels unstable. But when your heart is still, the world begins to align in ways you could never have imagined. Buddhism teaches us that the outer world is often a reflection of the inner one. If your inner state is filled with noise, fear, and constant chasing, then no matter how much you achieve, you will still feel incomplete. But when you cultivate inner stillness, you become like a calm lake, clear, steady, and quietly beautiful. And just like a calm lake reflects the sky, your inner peace begins to reflect into the world around you. Think for a moment about people you admire, people you feel drawn to. They are not necessarily the loudest, richest, or most powerful. Often, they are the ones who carry themselves with calmness. Their presence feels grounding, their words carry weight, not because they shout, but because they speak from a place of stillness. This is the power of inner peace. It draws others, it creates harmony, and it naturally attracts opportunities. People trust you when they sense your stability. They feel safe with you, and they want to be around you. Now imagine the opposite. A restless person who is always chasing, always anxious, always desperate for the next thing. Even if they are successful on the outside, people can feel the chaos within them. Their energy pushes others away because desperation never attracts, it repels. This is why inner stillness matters so much. It is not about appearing calm on the surface, it is about truly calming the storms inside. When you quiet your mind, you change the way you experience the world, and in turn, you change the way the world responds to you. Meditation, mindfulness, and breathing practices are not just spiritual exercises. They are ways to return to your center. When you sit in silence, when you focus on your breath, when you observe your thoughts instead of drowning in them, you begin to realize that peace has always been within you. It is not something you chase outside. It is something you uncover inside. And from this stillness, a new kind of fulfillment arises, one that no money, no recognition, and no external success can ever provide. Think about the times when you were calm, truly calm. Maybe you were sitting in nature, watching the sunset, or maybe you were simply alone in your room, breathing deeply. In those moments, didn't life feel whole already? Didn't you feel as though nothing was missing, even though nothing extraordinary was happening? That is the secret. Fulfillment does not come from the outside in. It grows from the inside out. When you are still, you attract the right things without chasing. Opportunities feel lighter, relationships feel deeper, and challenges feel easier to face. It is not that life suddenly becomes perfect. It is that you meet life with a different spirit. You respond instead of reacting. You trust instead of fearing. You allow instead of forcing. And because of this, fulfillment finds its way to you, naturally and without struggle. The lesson is this. If you want the world outside you to feel right, first bring peace inside. Cultivate stillness. Practice mindfulness. Learn to sit with yourself without running. The moment you become a calm lake, the sky of life reflects its beauty upon you. Inner stillness is not weakness, it is strength. It is the magnetic force that quietly attracts everything you once thought you had to chase. 5. Chasing creates fear, letting go creates freedom. When we spend our lives chasing, we don't realize how much fear controls us. Chasing is never born out of peace. It comes from the fear of not having, the fear of missing out, the fear of being left behind. We run after people because we are afraid they might leave. We chase success because we are afraid of being seen as ordinary. We pursue recognition because we are afraid of being forgotten. In every form of chasing, beneath the surface, there is fear, and fear is heavy. It sits in the chest like a stone, making life feel like a never-ending burden. Buddhism teaches us about impermanence, the truth that nothing in this world lasts forever. Everything changes, people change, situations shift, even our own bodies are constantly transforming. When we ignore this truth, we cling tightly to things, desperate to hold them still, terrified of losing them. But the more we cling, the more pain we create for ourselves. It's like trying to trap the wind inside your hands. You end up exhausted and empty, because what you're trying to hold was never meant to be held. When you are caught in the cycle of chasing, your mind lives in constant tension. You worry about the future, you dread loss, and you measure your worth by things outside your control. Even when you finally catch what you were chasing, the fear does not leave. It simply shifts. You get the relationship, and now you fear losing it. You achieve success, and now you fear failure. You earn recognition, and now you fear being forgotten. Fear never ends when chasing is your way of living. It only changes shape, following you wherever you go. But letting go breaks this chain. Letting go does not mean you stop caring, and it does not mean you give up on life. It means you release the grip of fear. It means you understand that what comes, comes, and what goes, goes, and both are part of life's natural rhythm. By letting go, you allow yourself to breathe freely again. You are no longer a prisoner of fear, you become a friend of freedom. Think about it this way. When you let go, you don't lose control, you gain clarity. You begin to see that the things meant for you are never lost, and the things not meant for you were never yours to keep. Suddenly, the fear of loss fades because you realize there is nothing permanent to lose. This is freedom. Not the freedom of doing whatever you want, but the freedom of not being enslaved by your desires and fears. Imagine walking through life with open hands instead of clenched fists. With open hands, you can receive blessings without crushing them. You can hold relationships with love, not with chains. You can pursue goals with joy, not with desperation. And when something leaves, your open hands do not break. They simply make room for something new. This is the heart of letting go. There is a deep peace in living this way. When you are no longer ruled by fear, you start to live fully. You notice the beauty of the present instead of worrying about the future. You take risks without being paralyzed by what you might lose. You love deeply without trying to control or own the people you love. You work hard without chaining your happiness to the outcome. This is freedom. The freedom to live without the weight of fear pressing down on your shoulders. The Buddhist masters remind us, freedom is not found in gaining more, but in needing less. And the greatest freedom of all is being free from fear. The fear of loss, the fear of failure, the fear of being without. The moment you let go of the desperate chase, you discover this freedom waiting quietly within you. So the lesson is clear. Chasing keeps you trapped in fear, but letting go opens the door to true freedom. Stop running after what is constantly slipping away and instead learn to walk lightly with trust. In letting go, you will find the courage to live, and in living, you will finally taste the sweetness of freedom. 6. Letting go aligns you with the present moment. Chasing is always about the future. It is the voice inside your head that whispers, "When I get this, then I'll be happy. When I achieve that, then I'll feel complete. When I finally arrive at the next stage, then I'll rest." But notice the trap here. Then never comes. As soon as you reach one goal, your mind already jumps to the next one. As soon as you get what you wanted, the feeling fades and you start chasing again. Life becomes an endless cycle of running after tomorrows, while today slips quietly through your fingers. Buddhism teaches that real life exists only in the present moment. The past is gone, and the future has not yet arrived. All you truly have is the breath you are taking right now. When you spend your life chasing, you abandon this truth. You overlook the small miracles happening around you, the sunlight warming your skin, the taste of food on your tongue, the laughter of someone you love, the silence of the night. These simple moments contain more peace and joy than anything you are running after, yet they go unnoticed when your eyes are fixed only on what is ahead. Letting go realigns you with this truth. When you let go of the need to control tomorrow, you finally begin to notice the gift of today. You stop asking, "What's next?" and instead ask, "What is here right now?" And when you ask that question, life responds with beauty. You realize the present is not empty, it is full of lessons, full of blessings, full of opportunities to live deeply. Think about this. When you are eating a meal but your mind is chasing after tomorrow's worries, do you really taste the food? When you are sitting with someone you love but your mind is racing toward your next goal, are you really with them? When you walk outside but your thoughts are clinging to what you want, do you really see the sky, the trees, the air moving around you? This is how chasing steals life. It blinds you to what you already have. The practice of mindfulness in Buddhism is a gentle invitation to return home to the present, to notice your breath as it enters and leaves your body, to feel the ground beneath your feet as you walk, to listen fully when someone speaks without waiting to reply, to eat slowly, to sit in silence, to breathe deeply. These practices are not small, they are the essence of living. Because when you are mindful, you discover that peace and happiness are not hidden in the future. They are already here. Letting go is not just about releasing people or situations. It is about releasing the illusion that happiness lives anywhere but now. The moment you stop chasing after the next thing, you discover that the present moment has always been enough. The sound of the wind, the stillness of the morning, the joy of simply being alive. These things are not waiting for you in some distant future. They are here, right now, waiting for your attention. There is a famous teaching in Buddhism: do not dwell in the past, do not dream of the future, concentrate the mind on the present moment. This is not a call to stop planning or to live carelessly. It is a reminder that life is only ever happening here. You can prepare for tomorrow, but you can only live today. And when you let go of chasing, you finally return to this reality. The lesson is this: chasing pulls you away from life, but letting go anchors you in it. When you stop running toward a future that doesn't exist yet, you discover the richness of the moment you already hold in your hands. And in this present, you will find more peace, more joy, and more fulfillment than all the chasing in the world could ever give you. 7. What is meant for you will always find you. The final and perhaps most comforting truth is this: what is truly meant for you will never miss you, and what is not meant for you will never stay. This teaching is echoed again and again in Buddhism, not in the form of blind fate, but as a recognition of the natural flow of life. Just as rivers find their way to the ocean without force, what belongs to you will eventually make its way into your life. You do not need to beg for it, chase it, or lose yourself trying to hold on to it. You simply need to be ready when it arrives. So much of our suffering comes from believing that we must control every detail of our path. We think, if I don't chase this person, they'll leave me forever. If I don't force this opportunity, it will slip away. If I don't cling tightly, I will lose everything. But life is not meant to be lived in panic. What is truly aligned with your heart, your growth, and your soul will come to you, even if it takes time, even if it comes in a form you don't expect. Think of the seasons. You cannot force winter to end early, no matter how much you beg for spring. The flowers bloom when it is their season, and not a day before. In the same way, your blessings bloom when the conditions of your life and heart are ready. If you pull at a flower before it is ready, you destroy it. but if you wait patiently, you witness its full beauty. Life works in the same rhythm. By chasing, you may try to pull things out of season, but by trusting, you allow them to bloom when the time is right. Think about the people who have entered your life without effort. Perhaps you met a friend by coincidence, or an opportunity came to you when you had almost given up. These moments show us that not everything needs to be forced. In fact, the most meaningful things often appear when you are no longer chasing them. They arrive when you are living authentically, when your heart is open, and when you have made space by letting go of what was never yours. Buddhism teaches that clinging to what is not meant for you only blocks what is. Imagine holding a stone so tightly in your fist that your hand aches. You want to pick up a flower, but your hand is already full. In the same way, if your life is filled with things you are forcing, relationships, jobs, habits that are not aligned, you leave no room for the blessings that are truly yours. Letting go is the act of opening your hand, releasing the stone, and making space for the flower. This truth also brings deep peace when we face loss. Sometimes people leave, sometimes opportunities pass, sometimes dreams change. In those moments, the mind wants to scream, "I lost what was mine." But the reality is, if it could leave you, it was never truly yours. What is meant for you will stay, not because you chained it, but because it belongs with you. And if it leaves, something else is coming, something more aligned with your path. Trusting this removes the desperation from life and replaces it with patience. The key is not to sit passively and wait for life to hand you everything. You still walk your path, you still put in effort, you still live with intention, but you no longer chase with fear. You live with trust. You understand that your role is to become the person who is ready for what is meant for you, not to force it to come before its time. You cultivate your character, your peace, your wisdom, and when the moment is right, the doors open by themselves. This is freedom, knowing that you do not need to control the entire universe for your life to unfold beautifully. You only need to be aligned, patient, and open. What is truly yours, whether it is love, purpose, or peace, will not pass you by. It will come quietly and naturally, just as the dawn comes after the night, without struggle and without delay. The lesson is this: trust life. Trust its timing. Trust that what belongs to you will recognize you, and when it arrives, it will feel effortless. Until then, live in peace, not panic. Let go of what is not yours and stay open for what is, because what is meant for you will always find you, and when it does, you will realize it was never lost in the first place. 8. Patience is the bridge between letting go and receiving. When we speak about letting go, many people misunderstand it as simply walking away and waiting passively, as though life will suddenly hand them everything they ever desired. But letting go is not the end of the journey. It is the beginning of a deeper practice: patience. Patience is not just about waiting. It is about how you wait, about the state of your heart and mind while you allow life to unfold in its own time. And in Buddhism, patience is seen as one of the highest virtues because it transforms waiting into wisdom. When we are impatient, we may claim to have let go, but inside we are still restless. We say, "I'll wait," but our minds keep asking, "When? When will it come? Why hasn't it happened yet?" This hidden agitation means we are still clinging, still chasing in disguise. True patience is different. It is quiet, calm, and filled with trust. It says, "I will continue to walk my path, to do my part, and I will accept whatever comes, whenever it comes." This form of patience is not weakness, it is power. It shows that you have overcome the need to control time itself. Think about the farmer who plants seeds. He waters the soil, tends to the land, and protects the seeds, but he does not scream at them to grow. He knows that growth has its season. He cannot pull the plant out of the soil to make it bloom faster. If he tries, he destroys it. His role is to nurture the conditions and then to trust nature to do the rest. Life is exactly the same. When you let go of chasing, patience is what allows your blessings to bloom in their season without you ripping them out of the soil too soon. Many times in life, we suffer not because what we want will never come, but because we cannot bear the weight. We rush into relationships because we cannot bear to be alone. We accept jobs that drain us because we cannot bear the uncertainty of unemployment. We cling to things that are not good for us because we cannot bear the silence of the empty space they leave behind. Impatience makes us grab at what is near, even if it is not right. But patience teaches us to wait for what is truly meant, even if it takes longer than we expected. Buddhism speaks often about impermanence, but equally about timing. Nothing lasts forever, but everything also has its season. Just as storms eventually give way to clear skies, your struggles will eventually give way to clarity if you are patient enough to endure them. But if you rush, you may abandon the path right before the light appears. This is why patience is called a bridge. It carries you from the pain of letting go to the joy of receiving, but only if you keep walking across it without turning back. Patience is also freedom from the illusion of urgency. Look at how society trains us. Everything is about speed, instant results, immediate gratification. We want fast success, fast love, fast recognition. But the truth is, the things of true value, wisdom, love, trust, healing, spiritual growth, cannot be rushed. They take time because time shapes them into something lasting. A tree does not become strong overnight. It stands through years of wind, rain, and sun. Only then does it grow roots deep enough to survive storms. In the same way, patience allows your soul to grow strong enough to carry the blessings you are asking for. Without patience, you may receive too soon, and what you receive may crumble in your hands. Think of your own life. How many times did something feel delayed, only for you to later realize that the timing was perfect? Perhaps you didn't get the job you wanted, and months later, a better one appeared. Perhaps a relationship ended painfully, only for you to discover that it created space for someone who truly valued you. At the time you suffered, you thought life was unfair. But looking back, you see the wisdom of waiting. This is the gift of patience. It reveals meaning in what once felt meaningless. Practicing patience requires trust, and trust requires humility. It means accepting that you do not always know when or how things should happen. It means bowing to the rhythm of life instead of trying to bend it. And in that humility, peace is born. You no longer wake up every day in panic, wondering if your dreams will ever come. You wake up with faith, knowing that as long as you walk with sincerity, what is yours is on its way. In Buddhism, patience is sometimes described as a form of wisdom. Why? Because it teaches us that every moment of waiting is not empty, it is shaping you. While you wait, you are learning resilience. While you wait, you are building strength. While you wait, you are preparing for what is coming. The blessing is not just in what you will receive later. The blessing is also in who you become while waiting. Without patience, you miss this transformation. With patience, you arrive not only at your destination, but as a different, stronger version of yourself. Patience also transforms your relationships. Instead of rushing others, demanding that they change or act according to your timeline, patience allows you to accept them as they are. It gives space for love to grow naturally, without force. It teaches you to listen deeply, to forgive slowly, and to walk alongside others without pushing them forward or pulling them back. In this way, patience becomes a form of compassion, not only for yourself, but for everyone around you. The lesson is this: patience is not simply about waiting for what you want. It is about trusting life enough to stop demanding, and trusting yourself enough to endure the silence in between. It is the bridge between letting go and receiving, between emptiness and fulfillment, between despair and peace. Without patience, letting go feels like loss. With patience, letting go feels like preparation. So do not fear the waiting, embrace it. Let the silence of waiting teach you what noise cannot. Let the slowness of time strengthen you where speed has weakened you. Let patience be your companion, and you will discover that everything you thought you lost is only returning to you in a better form, at a better time, in a way that makes sense. Life is not late. It is always on time. You simply need the patience to see it. 9. Freedom is found in surrender, not in control. From the moment we are children, we are taught to believe that control equals strength. We are told, take charge of your life, plan your future, hold on tightly to what you have, and never let anything slip away. The world praises those who grasp, cling, and fight for every ounce of control, as if letting go were weakness. But Buddhism teaches the opposite truth. True strength is not found in control, but in surrender. Freedom does not come from gripping life with trembling hands. It comes from opening those hands and trusting the flow. When we cling, we suffer. Clinging to possessions makes us afraid of losing them. Clinging to people makes us anxious about abandonment. Clinging to status makes us restless, always looking over our shoulder to see if someone is ahead of us. Control feels powerful in the moment, but in reality, it is exhausting. You are not holding life still. You are only holding yourself hostage. Think of a butterfly. If you trap it in your hand, it may stay, but only as long as you squeeze. In your effort to control it, you destroy its freedom and eventually its life. But if you let it go, it may return to you, not because you forced it, but because it chose to. Love, success, peace, they are all like the butterfly. They cannot thrive under chains. The moment you control them, you crush them. But when you let them go, you give them space to live. And in that space, they return in their own time. Surrender is not the same as giving up. To surrender is to recognize what is within your power and what is not. Buddhism teaches us to distinguish between skillful action and fruitless clinging. You can plant seeds, water them, and care for the soil. That is your effort. But whether the rain will fall, whether the sun will shine, whether the plant will grow, that is beyond your control. Surrender means doing your part fully, but then releasing the outcome. It means you do not chain your happiness to results you cannot control. Why is surrender freedom? Because it releases you from the constant burden of playing God in your own life. When you cling, you live with tension, always calculating, always doubting, always fearing. When you surrender, you live with peace. You still act, but you act without desperation. You still dream, but you dream without anxiety. You still love, but you love without chains. You discover that life flows far more beautifully without your interference than it ever did with your force. Consider the ocean. A wave rises and falls, and no matter how much you wish to hold it at its peak, it will always return to the sea. If you try to freeze the wave, you are fighting the very nature of water. But if you let the wave rise and fall, you experience its beauty without pain. Life is the same. Everything rises, everything falls, everything returns. To surrender is to stop fighting this truth and to finally find freedom in it. When you stop controlling, you also stop fearing. Much of our fear comes from the illusion that if we are not in control, everything will fall apart. But think carefully. How many things in your life have already happened without your control? Did you control the family you were born into? Did you control the weather, the economy, the turning of day into night? Did you control the way your heart beats every second without you ever commanding it? Life is already happening without your control. The truth is, you were never in charge of most things. You were only in charge of your response to them. When you realize this, you stop fighting battles that were never yours to fight. Surrender also deepens your trust. It teaches you to trust the wisdom of life, the rhythm of the universe, the unfolding of events beyond your understanding. Buddhism calls this trust faith, not in a blind sense, but in the recognition that the universe has its own order. Just as the seasons turn without your command, just as the stars move across the sky without your effort, life unfolds according to its own timing. Surrender means stepping back enough to let life reveal its wisdom. And here lies the paradox. When you surrender, you gain more power than when you control. Why? Because control is limited to your narrow vision, your limited knowledge. You force life to follow your plan, even if your plan is small. But surrender allows you to receive life's plan, which is often greater than anything you imagined. How many times have you tried to control something, only to later realize that the outcome you resisted was actually better for you? This is why surrender is not weakness. It is wisdom. It opens the door to possibilities far beyond what control could ever achieve. Let us reflect on relationships again. When you control someone, you may keep them physically close, but you will lose their heart. When you surrender, you allow them to stay out of choice, and love grows naturally. Or think about work. If you control every step, you may achieve small victories, but you burn out in the process. When you surrender, you still work with discipline, but you are not consumed by fear of results. You act with focus, but also with peace, and from that peace, greater success often flows. Surrender also changes the way you see loss. When something leaves you, a person, a dream, a season, you do not collapse in despair, because you know it was never yours to control. You do not grip the past with bloody fingers. You open your hands to receive the future. This freedom allows you to keep walking even when life feels uncertain. And because you are not chained to control, you find joy in small moments, even while waiting for new blessings. But how do we practice surrender in daily life? It begins with awareness. The next time you feel tension, ask yourself, what am I trying to control right now? Is this truly in my hands? If it is, act wisely. If it is not, let it go. Breathe, trust, walk forward without the weight of needing every answer. Over time, this practice becomes a habit, and surrender becomes your natural way of living. The lesson is this: freedom is not in gripping tighter, but in letting go. Control is an illusion that drains your life, but surrender is a truth that gives you back your peace. The more you let go, the lighter you become. The lighter you become, the freer you are. And in that freedom, you discover that life is not something to be wrestled with. It is something to be danced with. So let your hands open, let your heart soften, let your mind rest. You do not need to control every wave, every star, every breath. You only need to flow, to trust, and to surrender. In that surrender, you will find the freedom you have been chasing all along. 10. Peace arrives. When you stop running and learn to simply be. For most of our lives, we have been running. Running after dreams, running after people, running after recognition, running after the next version of ourselves that we think will finally be enough. We run because we believe there is somewhere else to reach, some higher point at which life will finally make sense. But in this endless running, we forget the most important truth of all. Peace does not wait for us at the finish line. It is here, in this very moment, waiting quietly for us to notice it. Buddhism teaches that suffering arises because the mind is never satisfied with what is. It always craves more, always imagines better, always tells us that happiness is one step ahead. And so we run, convinced that peace will come when we achieve, when we win, when we arrive. But think carefully. Have you ever truly arrived? Every time you reached one goal, didn't another one appear? Every time you caught one desire, didn't your heart immediately invent a new one? This is the nature of chasing. It has no end. And this is why running steals life from us. It keeps us forever in tomorrow, while today passes quietly, unnoticed. Imagine your life as a long road. If you are always sprinting toward the horizon, your eyes fixed only on the far distance, you miss the flowers blooming at your feet. You miss the gentle breeze, the songs of the birds, the kindness of strangers along the way. And one day, when you finally reach the end, you realize that you ran past the very life you were seeking. This is why the Buddha's teaching is simple but revolutionary. Stop running, sit, breathe, be here. Only then will you discover that the peace you were chasing has always been within you. Peace is not something we earn, it is something we uncover. It is like the sky on a cloudy day. The clouds of craving, fear, and restlessness may cover it, but the sky has never disappeared. It has always been there, vast and clear, waiting for the winds of awareness to reveal it again. In the same way, your peace has never left you. It is hidden beneath the noise of your mind, beneath the stories of not enough, beneath the running. When you stop, when you breathe, when you let go, the clouds part, and the sky of your true self shines again. But why do we resist stopping? Why do we cling so desperately to running? The answer is fear. We are afraid that if we stop chasing, life will pass us by. We are afraid that if we stop striving, we will become nothing. We are afraid that stillness equals failure. But this fear is an illusion. Think of the ocean. No matter how still it looks on the surface, it is alive with depth and power. Stillness is not emptiness, it is strength. The person who can sit with themselves in silence, who can be content without constant motion, is the strongest of all. When you stop running, you begin to notice life as it truly is. You see that the small things you once ignored are actually the essence of joy. The warmth of tea in your hands, the laughter of a child, the stillness of the morning, the sound of rain, all of these are reminders that peace is not in achieving, but in being. Chasing tells you that life is waiting for you in the future. Stillness shows you that life is happening now. This is why mindfulness is at the heart of Buddhist practice. Mindfulness is the art of being fully present in each moment, without judgment and without grasping. When you walk, walk fully. When you eat, eat with awareness. When you breathe, notice the breath as it enters and leaves your body. These simple acts transform your life because they pull you out of the illusion of running and anchor you in the truth of being. When you live this way, peace stops being a rare guest and becomes your constant companion. You no longer need to wait for perfect circumstances to feel whole. You do not need the approval of others, the next promotion, or the next achievement to feel alive. You discover that you are enough right now, as you are, and from this realization, a deep contentment rises, one that cannot be shaken by gain or loss, praise or blame, success or failure. This is also why letting go is so central to peace. You cannot be still if your mind is filled with chains. Chains of regret about the past, chains of fear about the future, chains of desire for things that are not yours. Letting go cuts these chains one by one until you are free to simply be. And in that freedom, you realize something profound. Life is not about holding everything together. It is about learning to let it flow, to trust its rhythm, to walk lightly instead of running desperately. Now consider the times when you felt truly at peace. Perhaps it was sitting by the ocean, watching the waves. Perhaps it was lying under the stars, feeling small and infinite at the same time. Perhaps it was in prayer, meditation, or silence. Notice that in all these moments, you were not running. You were not chasing. You were simply being. That is the secret. Peace comes not from doing more, but from allowing yourself to do less. Sometimes to do nothing at all. This does not mean you abandon your responsibilities or your dreams. It means you approach them with a different spirit. Instead of chasing desperately, you walk calmly. Instead of clinging, you hold lightly. Instead of rushing, you move steadily. You still plant seeds, but you no longer scream at them to grow. You still love, but you no longer chain love with fear. You still pursue goals, but your happiness is no longer imprisoned by their outcomes. You act from peace, not from panic. And because of this, your actions carry more power, more clarity, more wisdom. Buddhism calls this way of living the middle path, the balance between effort and ease, between striving and surrender. When you walk this path, you no longer swing between extremes of chasing and giving up. You live in harmony, where peace is your foundation and action flows naturally from it. This is not laziness, it is the deepest form of strength. It is the strength of the tree that stands tall, not by forcing itself, but by simply being rooted in its place. The greatest irony is this: when you finally stop running, the things you once chased begin to come to you naturally. Love flows to the heart that is not desperate for it. Success comes to the person who works with peace instead of fear. Wisdom comes to the mind that is still enough to hear it. By learning to be, you become magnetic. Not because you forced life to bend to you, but because you aligned yourself with its natural flow. The lesson, then, is clear. Peace is not at the end of the chase. It is here, now, in the stillness you are afraid to enter. Stop running. Sit with yourself. Breathe. Learn the art of simply being. When you do, you will realize that what you were chasing was never outside of you. It has been within you all along, waiting for you to slow down enough to see it. So, let this be your practice. Every day, create moments where you stop running. Moments where you put down the burdens of chasing and allow yourself to exist without condition. Watch how your heart softens. Watch how your mind clears. Watch how life begins to feel lighter, more beautiful, more alive. For in the end, peace is not something you chase. Peace is who you are when you finally allow yourself to be. Acceptance is the doorway to true freedom. If there is one thread that ties all of life's teachings together, it is this: suffering does not come from what happens to us, but from how tightly we resist it. We want life to unfold on our terms. We want people to act the way we expect, circumstances to bend to our desires, and outcomes to match the pictures in our minds. And when reality refuses to obey, we suffer. But Buddhism teaches us a profound truth. Acceptance is the antidote to this suffering. When you stop fighting what is, and you allow yourself to see life as it truly is, peace finally begins. Acceptance does not mean you like everything that happens. It does not mean you stop working for change or abandon your dreams. True acceptance means you face reality without denial, without clinging, and without the desperate wish that things be different in this exact moment. It means you acknowledge the truth of now, even if it is uncomfortable, because only from that truth can transformation grow. You cannot heal a wound by pretending it does not exist. You cannot solve a problem by denying it. Acceptance is the courage to look life in the eye and say, "This is what is before me." So much of our pain comes not from the situation itself, but from the story we add to it. If someone leaves, we tell ourselves, "I will never be loved again." If a door closes, we tell ourselves, "This is the end of my chances." If we face failure, we say, "I am worthless." But these stories are not reality. They are resistance. They are our refusal to accept what has happened, and they tighten the chains of suffering around us. Acceptance is the act of dropping the story and simply meeting the moment as it is. This person has left. This door has closed. This attempt has failed. That is the truth. And when you can hold that truth without collapsing into fear, you open space for freedom. Think of life as a river. You may stand in the middle, screaming at the water to flow in the opposite direction, but the river will not obey. All your effort does is exhaust you. But if you accept the direction of the current, if you allow yourself to float, the river carries you with far less struggle. Acceptance is like floating. It doesn't mean you stop moving, but it means you move with life instead of against it. Buddhism speaks often of dukkha, the suffering, dissatisfaction, and unease that comes from clinging and resistance. Acceptance is the first step in ending dukkha. When you resist, every challenge feels heavier than it truly is. But when you accept, you see the challenge for what it is, no more and no less. You stop adding layers of "why me" and "this shouldn't be happening." Instead, you meet life on its own terms. And strangely, the moment you stop fighting reality, much of the suffering dissolves on its own. But acceptance is not passive. It is active courage. It takes strength to accept heartbreak without closing your heart. It takes wisdom to accept failure without calling yourself a failure. It takes humility to accept impermanence, the truth that everything, no matter how precious, eventually changes. This acceptance is not weakness. It is the deepest strength, because it means you are no longer broken by the flow of life. You bend, you adapt, you allow, and because of this, you survive storms that would have destroyed a rigid heart. Consider the trees. In the face of strong winds, the rigid ones snap, but the flexible ones bend and return upright when the storm passes. Acceptance makes you like the flexible tree. You bend with reality instead of breaking against it. You stop demanding that life be something it is not, and instead you adjust, you grow, you endure. This adaptability is true freedom. Acceptance also transforms your relationships. How often do we suffer because we cannot accept others as they are? We try to control, to change, to mold them into our vision of who they should be. And when they fail to meet our expectations, we feel betrayed. But were they truly the problem, or was it our inability to accept them? Acceptance does not mean tolerating harm, but it does mean seeing people clearly without the filter of your desires. It means you stop expecting someone else to complete you and you begin to love them as they are, or to walk away if the connection is not right. This kind of acceptance frees both you and them from chains of unrealistic expectation. Acceptance also applies to yourself. Many of us live as enemies of our own being, rejecting our flaws, denying our struggles, hating parts of ourselves that do not fit the image of perfection we want to project. But how can you heal if you do not first accept where you are? If you are anxious, accept that truth instead of pretending you are calm. If you are lost, accept the lostness instead of forcing certainty. If you are broken, accept the brokenness instead of hiding it. Acceptance is the soil from which growth arises. Without it, you are only building illusions on top of denial. Buddhism teaches that self-compassion is a form of acceptance. To sit with your own pain without judgment, without self-hatred, is one of the most healing practices you can ever learn. Imagine holding yourself the way a mother holds a child, gently, without scolding, simply acknowledging, yes, this hurts. Yes, you are struggling, but it is okay. You are still worthy. You are still loved. This is acceptance, not running from your pain, but holding it with tenderness until it transforms. Acceptance is also the path to gratitude. When you accept life as it is, you stop obsessing over what is missing and begin to notice what is present. You realize that even in difficulty there are blessings, the kindness of a stranger, the lessons of failure, the beauty of a sunrise that costs nothing. Gratitude cannot grow in a heart that is always fighting reality, but in a heart that accepts, gratitude blooms naturally. One of the most liberating teachings in Buddhism is, pain is certain, but suffering is optional. We cannot avoid pain. Loss, change, endings and challenges are part of life. But suffering, the endless cycle of this should not be, is a choice. Acceptance does not remove pain, but it removes the added suffering we create by resisting what already is. And in that removal, freedom is born. Think again of your own life. How many years have you spent fighting reality, wishing the past were different, resenting people for not behaving as you wanted, punishing yourself for not being who you thought you should be. All of that was resistance. What if instead you began to accept the past as unchangeable, to accept people as they are, to accept yourself even in imperfection, to accept that life is not always fair, not always easy, but always real? Wouldn't your heart feel lighter? Wouldn't you breathe easier? This is the power of acceptance. The lesson is simple but profound. Acceptance is not giving up, it is growing up. It is the maturity to meet life as it is, without endless fighting. It is the courage to stop demanding perfection and to begin living in reality. And when you live this way, a quiet miracle happens. You find freedom. Freedom from the chains of resistance, freedom from the burden of control, freedom from the endless war with what already is. When you accept, you discover that life has always been enough, not because it gave you everything you wanted, but because it gave you everything you needed to grow. And in that realization, peace flows naturally, like a river returning to the sea. Embracing impermanence, finding freedom in change. One of the most profound teachings of Buddhism is the truth of anicca, impermanence. Everything in life changes, every season passes, every moment fades, every life eventually returns to the earth. Yet much of our suffering comes from pretending that impermanence does not exist. We cling to people as if they will never leave. We grip success as if it will never fade. We fight aging as if we can stop time itself. But the truth remains. Nothing stays the same. And when you resist this truth, you live in pain. When you embrace it, you discover freedom. Impermanence is not meant to scare us. It is meant to wake us up. Imagine for a moment if nothing ever changed. Imagine if pain lasted forever, if heartbreak never healed, if failure defined you for all time. Change is what allows growth, what allows new beginnings, what allows healing. The very fact that everything is temporary is not a curse, it is a blessing, because it means no matter how dark your night feels, dawn is always coming. No matter how heavy your suffering is, it will not last forever. The teaching of impermanence gives hope in suffering and humility in joy. But here is where most of us struggle. We want the good things to last forever, and the bad things to end immediately. We are happy when impermanence removes our pain, but we fight it when it touches our happiness. We want to hold on to love, success, beauty, youth, recognition, as if these things can be frozen in time. But to cling is to suffer. It is like trying to stop a river from flowing by grabbing the water in your hands. The more you hold, the more it escapes. The river keeps moving, whether you resist or not. Think of the people you love. You may desperately wish for them to remain unchanged, to stay young, healthy, and near you forever. But time will move them, just as it moves you. Their bodies will age, their paths may shift, their lives may take them away from you. If you cling, you will suffer when change comes. But if you love them with the awareness of impermanence, you cherish every moment more deeply. You don't take their presence for granted. You say, "I love you," more often. You listen more attentively, you forgive more quickly, because you know this moment will never come again. This is the hidden gift of impermanence. It teaches us presence. When you understand that everything is fleeting, you stop postponing joy. You stop waiting for the perfect moment because you realize the perfect moment is now. You stop wasting days in resentment because you know time is short. You stop clinging to illusions of permanence, and instead you live fully in the reality of change. Impermanence also teaches humility. No matter how high you rise, you will not hold that position forever. Success fades, fame passes, strength declines. If you cling to these things, you will collapse when they slip away. But if you accept impermanence, you enjoy them while they last and release them gracefully when they go. You understand that life is not about holding crowns, but about learning from each season. The tree does not cling to its leaves in autumn. It lets them fall, trusting that spring will bring new ones. We must learn to do the same. At the same time, impermanence brings comfort in suffering. When life feels unbearable, remember, this too shall pass. No storm lasts forever. No pain stays unchanged. Your tears today will not be your tears forever. Just as seasons change, so will your heart, so will your path, so will your life. When you embrace impermanence, you stop drowning in despair, because you know that change is always possible. Healing is always possible. Renewal is always possible. Buddhism often compares life to a flame. A flame flickers, it moves, it changes shape from moment to moment. It is never the same twice, yet it continues to burn. Your life is the same. Every moment changes you, your thoughts, your emotions, your body, your circumstances. Nothing is fixed. When you cling to a fixed idea of who you are, you suffer. But when you embrace impermanence, you allow yourself to grow, to transform, to evolve into the person you were meant to become. So how do we practice embracing impermanence? First, by observing it in small ways. Watch the sunrise. It lasts only minutes before the colors fade. Listen to laughter. It echoes and disappears. Notice your breath. It comes and goes without staying. These simple observations remind you that impermanence is not an idea. It is reality. The more you see it, the more you accept it. Second, practice letting go in daily life. When something ends, a conversation, a season, a chapter, acknowledge it without clinging. Thank it for what it gave you and release it. When something new arrives, welcome it without fear, knowing it too will pass. This rhythm is not to be resisted, but embraced. Third, learn to live lightly. Don't burden yourself with too many possessions, too many expectations, too many attachments. Travel through life like a bird, carrying only what you need, trusting that the winds of change will carry you where you are meant to go. Finally, bring impermanence into your heart. When you feel gratitude, remember, it may not last, so savor it. When you feel pain, remember it may not last, so endure it. When you love, remember it may not last in the same form, so love fully now, without holding back. This awareness does not make life sad, it makes it precious. The great Zen teacher Thich Nhat Hanh once said, "Because of impermanence, everything is possible." This is the essence of the teaching. Without impermanence, growth would be impossible. Without impermanence, freedom would be impossible. Without impermanence, life would be a stagnant prison. It is only because things change that we can heal, that we can move on, that we can find new paths and new joys. The lesson is clear. Stop fighting impermanence. See it not as an enemy, but as a teacher. Let it remind you to live fully, to love deeply, to hold lightly, and to release gracefully. When you embrace impermanence, you no longer fear change. You flow with it. You no longer mourn every ending. You welcome every beginning. And in this flow, you discover the freedom and peace that come only from living in harmony with the truth of life. Nothing lasts forever, and that is the very reason everything is beautiful. Non-attachment, the path to true liberation. If impermanence is the truth of life, then non-attachment is the wise response to it. Everything in life will change. Everything will eventually pass. Everything we hold today will one day slip from our hands. And yet, what do? We cling. We cling to people as if they can stay forever. We cling to possessions as if they can satisfy us forever. We cling to ideas of who we are as if identity could ever be frozen. But Buddhism teaches us that clinging is the root of suffering. Non-attachment is not coldness, and it is not indifference. It is freedom. It is the ability to love fully, to live deeply, and yet to let go gracefully when the time comes. Most people misunderstand non-attachment. They think it means cutting ties, refusing to care, becoming numb or detached from life. But this is not the teaching. Non-attachment does not mean you stop loving. It means you stop chaining love with fear. It does not mean you stop owning things. It means things no longer own you. It does not mean you stop dreaming. It means your dreams no longer control your worth. Non-attachment is not about turning away from life, but about living it without being enslaved by it. Think about a hand holding water. If you cup your hands gently, the water rests in your palms. But if you squeeze tightly, the water escapes through your fingers. Love, joy, peace, all of them are like water. When you cling too tightly, you lose them. But when you hold them lightly, they stay longer, and you enjoy them more deeply. This is the wisdom of non-attachment, to hold life lightly, to enjoy it fully without making it your prison. Let us begin with attachment to people. We love, and naturally, we fear losing the ones we love. So we cling, we demand, we control, we suffocate, all in the name of protecting love. But what happens? Love begins to wither. True love cannot grow in the soil of fear. True love is free. It gives space. It breathes. It accepts impermanence. Non-attachment in relationships means you love someone with your whole heart, but you do not try to cage them. You understand that people are not possessions. They are travelers on their own journey. They may walk beside you for a while, or they may take a different road. Non-attachment allows you to love them fully while they are here and to let them go with grace when it is time. Next is attachment to possessions. How often do we believe that owning more will finally make us happy? We collect, we hoard, we decorate our lives with things, believing they will give us peace. But possessions are impermanent too. They break, they fade, they are taken. If your happiness depends on them, then your happiness is as fragile as the objects you own. Non-attachment does not mean you give up everything and live in emptiness. It means you enjoy what you have without clinging to it. You use your belongings with gratitude, but you do not make them the foundation of your identity. If they go, you do not collapse, because you were never defined by them. Then there is attachment to identity. This is one of the subtlest chains of all. We say, I am this kind of person, I am successful, I am attractive, I am wise. And when life shifts, when failure comes, when youth fades, when mistakes happen, we feel destroyed. But who you are is not fixed. Just as the river is never the same from one moment to the next, you are never the same person you were yesterday. Non-attachment means you stop clinging to rigid labels of yourself. You allow yourself to change, to grow, to evolve. You no longer fear transformation because you understand you were never meant to be frozen. Attachment also shows up in our relationship with time. We cling to the past, replaying regrets, refusing to let go of what has already gone. Or we cling to the future, chasing what has not yet arrived, believing happiness lives there. Both are illusions. The past is a shadow, the future a dream. The only reality is now. Non-attachment pulls you out of these illusions and roots you in the present, where life actually exists. But how do we practice non-attachment without becoming cold? The answer is mindfulness. When you are mindful, you live each moment fully, knowing it will not last. You love someone with presence, knowing tomorrow may be different. You enjoy beauty with awareness, knowing it will fade. You cherish experiences without demanding they stay. This presence transforms your life. Paradoxically, by not clinging, you actually enjoy more deeply. Because instead of living in fear of losing, you live in gratitude for having. Non-attachment also gives birth to compassion. When you are free from clinging, you stop using people as tools to satisfy your needs. You love them for who they are, not for what they can give you. You listen without trying to control. You help without expecting reward. You forgive without demanding repayment. Compassion grows naturally from a heart that is free. Consider also how non-attachment frees you from fear. Fear is always tied to loss, the fear of losing health, wealth, love, status. But when you are not clinging, what is there to lose? If everything is borrowed, then when it leaves, you simply return it. This is not pessimism, it is peace. You live with open hands, not clenched fists. And because of this, you walk lightly, without the heavy burden of fear. Non-attachment is not an escape from life, it is the deepest way of living it. Imagine dancing. If you cling to each step, if you demand the music never change, you ruin the dance. But if you move freely, if you allow the rhythm to guide you without fear of the next note, you experience the joy of dancing. Life is the same. Non-attachment allows you to dance with existence, moment by moment, without clinging to steps that have already passed. Now think about death. Many people fear death because they are attached to life as they know it. But impermanence tells us death is not an end, only a transformation. Just as the leaf falls to nourish the soil, just as the seed dies to give birth to the tree, so too does our form change. Non-attachment frees us from fearing this transition. It teaches us that life is not about clinging to form, but about flowing with transformation. So how can you begin practicing non-attachment today? Start small. Notice where you cling. Is it in a relationship where fear rules? Is it in possessions you cannot imagine losing? Is it in an identity you are terrified to outgrow? Observe these clings without judgment. Then practice loosening your grip. Breathe when fear rises. Say to yourself, this too will pass. Begin to love with freedom, to own without being owned, to live without fear of change. The lesson is this: non-attachment is not the death of joy, it is its birth. When you let go of clinging, you love more deeply, live more fully, and walk more lightly. You realize that happiness was never in holding tightly. It was in releasing gently. Freedom does not come from filling your hands, but from opening them. And when you finally live this way, you discover liberation, the kind of liberation that cannot be taken away because it was never dependent on anything outside of you. The freedom of emptiness, beyond the illusion of self. At the heart of Buddhist teaching lies one of the most mysterious yet liberating truths, shunyata, or emptiness. This word often frightens people because we confuse emptiness with nothingness, with a void, with meaninglessness. But in Buddhism, emptiness does not mean life has no value. It means life is free from the chains of fixed identity. Emptiness is the recognition that nothing exists independently, permanently, or unchangingly, not your possessions, not your relationships, not even the self you call me. To realize this is not to fall into despair, but to awaken into freedom. Why do we suffer? Because we cling to the idea that we are a solid, separate self. We say, this is who I am, this is mine, this is what I must protect. And when life challenges this image, we panic. When someone insults us, we feel attacked, as if our very being is at stake. When we lose something we thought belonged to us, we feel as though part of us has been torn away. When change forces us to become someone new, we resist with fear because we are holding on to an identity that was never solid to begin with. Think about your body. You call it mine. But every cell in your body has been replaced countless times since you were born. The child you once were does not exist anymore, yet you say, this is me. Your body is in constant change, flowing like a river, never the same in any 2 moments. Where is the fixed self in that? Or think about your mind. The thoughts you had yesterday are gone. The emotions you felt an hour ago have dissolved. The beliefs you once held strongly may have shifted. If your thoughts and feelings change, if your body changes, then what exactly is this permanent I that you cling to? Buddhism teaches that the self is not a fixed thing, but a collection of conditions, body, thoughts, feelings, perceptions, consciousness, all arising and dissolving moment by moment. Like a flame, the self appears continuous, but in reality it is flickering, changing, never the same twice. Emptiness means that the self has no separate, permanent existence. It is interdependent, woven together with the rest of existence. When you see this truth, you begin to understand why clinging creates suffering. If you cling to a fixed identity, I must always be successful, I must always be strong, I must always be admired, you will break when life inevitably changes. But if you understand emptiness, you are free. You realize, I am not a fixed being. I am a flow, a process, a river of life. Then when change comes, you bend, you adapt, you transform, without losing yourself, because you were never fixed to begin with. Emptiness also transforms how we see possessions. We say, this is mine, but what does mine really mean? The clothes you wear were made by someone else, from materials grown by the earth, carried by workers, sold by merchants. They are not separate from the world. The food you eat was grown in soil, watered by rain, nurtured by sun, harvested by hands you never met. Even your breath is not yours. It is the gift of trees, oceans, and air, borrowed in each moment. When you see this, the illusion of separateness dissolves. You realize that nothing is truly yours. Everything is borrowed, everything is shared, everything is part of one great web. This is emptiness, not void, but interconnection. Far from making life meaningless, this realization makes it sacred. Because if everything is interconnected, then everything matters. Your smallest action ripples through the web of life. Your kindness nourishes others. Your compassion heals wounds. Your awareness influences the world in ways you cannot see. When you let go of the illusion of a separate self, you awaken to the truth that you are the entire universe experiencing itself in human form. Emptiness also brings deep compassion. When you stop clinging to a rigid I, you stop clinging to you and them. You see that all beings share the same nature of impermanence and interdependence. The person who hurt you is also shaped by causes and conditions, by pain and ignorance. The stranger who smiles at you is connected to you through countless invisible threads. The suffering of another is not separate from your own. Out of emptiness, compassion naturally arises because you see that we are not separate selves fighting for survival. We are waves of the same ocean. This is why emptiness is sometimes called fullness. When you empty yourself of clinging to a fixed identity, you become full of life itself. You are no longer confined to the prison of me and mine. You expand like the sky, vast, open, limitless. You still live as an individual, but you no longer mistake the individual for the whole. You act with humility, with love, with awareness of interbeing. But how do we practice emptiness in daily life? Start by noticing where you say mine or me. When someone insults you, pause and ask, what exactly in me is being attacked? The body that is always changing, the thoughts that shift moment to moment, or the idea of a self that I have created? Often you realize there is no solid I being harmed, only a passing thought, a passing word, a passing condition. This loosens the grip of ego. Practice also by contemplating interconnection. When you eat a piece of fruit, reflect, this fruit contains the sun, the rain, the soil, the farmer, the hands that carried it here. When I eat it, I am eating the whole universe. When you breathe, reflect, this breath is not mine. It comes from the trees, from the oceans, from the air shared by all beings. These reflections dissolve the illusion of separation and remind you of emptiness as interbeing. Most importantly, practice letting go of rigid identities. Allow yourself to be a flow, not a fixed point. If you fail, you are not a failure. You are a human in transformation. If you succeed, you are not a success. You are a being experiencing a moment of growth. Labels may come and go, but you are larger than any label. You are the space in which all labels arise and pass. The freedom of emptiness is profound. Imagine carrying a heavy backpack everywhere, filled with identities, possessions, attachments, and fears. Every step is exhausting. Realizing emptiness is like setting the backpack down. You discover that you can walk lightly, freely, joyfully. You are no longer defined by what you carry. You are defined by your capacity to let go. The lesson is this: emptiness is not something to fear, but something to embrace. It is the recognition that you are not separate, not fixed, not chained. You are a flow, a process, an unfolding of the universe itself. When you cling, you shrink yourself to a fragile me. When you let go, you expand into the vastness of existence. And in that vastness, you discover liberation, the kind of freedom that no loss can take away, no failure can destroy, no change can shake. To realize emptiness is to step beyond illusion into truth. And that truth is simple. There is no separate self, no permanent possession, no unchanging identity. There is only flow, interconnection, and presence. When you live this way, you are free. Free to love without chains. Free to live without fear. Free to walk lightly through the world, knowing that nothing is truly lost because nothing was ever truly separate. Compassion and loving kindness, the heart of true freedom. When people first hear about letting go, impermanence, emptiness, and non-attachment, they sometimes think these teachings point only toward detachment from the world, toward isolation, silence, or withdrawal. They imagine that a Buddhist path is one of cold stillness, where the self is dissolved and the world is left behind. But that is a misunderstanding. The deeper truth is this: when you let go of clinging, when you embrace impermanence, when you see through the illusion of a rigid self, you do not become empty of life, you become full of love. Compassion and loving kindness arise naturally when the chains of attachment and fear are broken. Compassion, karuna, is the ability to feel the suffering of others as your own. Loving kindness, metta, is the wish for all beings to be happy and free. These two are not side practices. They are the heart of the path. They are the blossoms that grow once the soil has been cleared of weeds. When you are free from constant chasing, free from endless clinging, your heart is no longer consumed by your own desires. Space opens within you, and in that space compassion grows. Think of a person drowning in the ocean. If you yourself are struggling desperately to stay afloat, you cannot help them. You are too busy fighting for air. But if you are floating calmly, supported by the water, you can extend your hand and pull them up. In the same way, when you are trapped in chasing, in clinging, in fear, you cannot truly care for others. You are drowning in your own mind. But when you are still, when you are free, you become strong enough to help others rise. This is why compassion is the natural fruit of liberation. Buddhism teaches that all beings suffer. This is not a pessimistic statement, but a compassionate one. It is a recognition that pain is part of the human condition. Loss, sickness, death, fear, loneliness, longing. No one is free from these truths. When you realize this deeply, you stop seeing people as enemies or obstacles. You see them as fellow travelers, walking the same difficult path. Even the one who hurts you is acting from their own suffering. Even the one who insults you is shaped by ignorance, fear, or pain. To see this is not to excuse harmful actions, but to understand them. And from understanding comes compassion. Compassion does not mean pity. Pity says, I am above you, looking down on your suffering. Compassion says, I am with you. I see your pain because I know it myself. This connection dissolves the illusion of separateness. When you act from compassion, you act from the recognition that helping others is helping yourself, because at the deepest level, there is no boundary between self and other. Loving kindness goes even further. It is not only a response to suffering, but a proactive wish for all beings to be well. It is the deliberate cultivation of goodwill, the prayer, may you be happy, may you be safe, may you be peaceful. This practice begins with yourself, because if you cannot wish yourself well, your love for others will always be incomplete. Then it extends outward, to loved ones, to friends, to strangers, to those who oppose you, and finally to all beings without exception. Imagine sitting quietly, breathing deeply, and repeating, may I be happy. May I be free from suffering. May I be safe. May I be at peace. Then you extend it, may you be happy. May you be free from suffering. May you be safe. May you be at peace. Then further, may all beings everywhere, seen and unseen, near and far, be happy, safe, and free. At first, it may feel like words, but with practice, it transforms your heart. You begin to see others differently. Instead of meeting the world with suspicion or fear, you meet it with warmth. Even difficult people soften in your presence because your energy changes. Loving kindness is not weakness. It is a power greater than anger because it disarms conflict at its root. Compassion and loving kindness also dissolve ego. When you truly care for others, you are no longer trapped in me, mine, my story. Your world expands. Your joy is no longer dependent only on your own success or comfort, but on the well-being of all. When someone else is happy, you are happy. When someone else is free, you feel lighter. This shift transforms suffering into service and isolation into connection. But compassion is not always easy. To love in this way requires courage. It is easy to love those who are kind to us, but can you love those who misunderstand you? Can you extend compassion to the one who hurt you, not by excusing them, but by recognizing that they too suffer? This is the real challenge of compassion, to keep your heart open when it wants to close, to see beyond behavior to the human pain beneath it. This does not mean you accept abuse or allow harm to continue. It means you act firmly but without hatred. You protect yourself without wishing destruction on another. Loving kindness also requires practice, especially toward yourself. Many people can forgive others but not themselves. They carry guilt, shame, and regret like heavy stones, believing they are unworthy of love. But without self-compassion, your love for others will always be wounded. To practice loving kindness toward yourself is not selfish. It is essential. When you sit in silence and say, may I be free from suffering, you are healing the wounds inside. And when you heal, you naturally spread healing outward. Compassion and loving kindness also bring joy. When your heart is free from hatred, envy, and resentment, it feels light. Acts of kindness create ripples that return to you in unexpected ways. A smile, a gentle word, a moment of patience. They may seem small, but they change lives. And each act of compassion nourishes your own soul, reminding you that love is the true purpose of freedom. This is why Buddhism teaches the balance of wisdom and compassion. Wisdom sees the truth of impermanence, emptiness, and non-self. Compassion ensures that this truth does not lead to cold detachment, but to warm connection. Wisdom without compassion can become harsh. Compassion without wisdom can become blind. But together, they form the complete path. Wisdom frees you from illusion. Compassion frees you from isolation. Think about the greatest teachers, the ones who inspire the world. What do they have in common? Not wealth, not fame, not power. What they carry is compassion. People remember not what they had, but how they made others feel, seen, valued, loved. This is the legacy of compassion. Long after possessions crumble and identities fade, love remains. So the lesson is this: freedom is not just about being free from your own chains. It is about using that freedom to help others with theirs. Compassion is the natural flowering of a free heart, and loving kindness is the fragrance it spreads. When you cultivate these qualities, you walk lightly through the world. yet your presence leaves deep footprints of love. Equanimity, the unshakable balance of the heart. Among the many treasures of Buddhist teaching, few are as powerful and as misunderstood as equanimity, known as upekkha. Some hear the word and mistake it for indifference, for a kind of cold detachment that does not feel or care. But equanimity is not numbness. It is the deepest strength of the heart. It is the ability to remain steady in the face of life's storms, to stay centered in both joy and sorrow, to love without clinging, and to endure without despair. If compassion is the warmth of the heart, equanimity is its strength. Together they form the perfect balance of love and wisdom. Why do we need equanimity? Because life is uncertain. One day we are praised, the next we are criticized. One day we win, the next we lose. One day we are surrounded by love, the next we are left in loneliness. Without equanimity, we are tossed about like a small boat on a stormy sea, lifted high by joy, smashed down by sorrow, endlessly reacting to the waves. With equanimity, we become like a sturdy ship with a deep anchor. The waves still come, but we do not sink. Buddhism teaches the 8 worldly winds: gain and loss, praise and blame, fame and disrepute, pleasure and pain. These winds blow on every life, no matter who you are. If you cling to gain, you will suffer in loss. If you chase praise, you will suffer in blame. If you attach to pleasure, you will collapse in pain. But if you cultivate equanimity, you meet all 8 winds with steadiness. You enjoy gain without being enslaved by it. You accept loss without despair. You listen to praise without arrogance. You hear blame without collapse. Equanimity is the art of walking through life with balance, no longer a prisoner of the winds. Think of the mountain. Storms rage, clouds gather, snow falls, yet the mountain stands. Equanimity makes the heart like that mountain, unmoved by passing weather, rooted in peace. Or think of the sky. Birds fly across it, storms fill it, rain falls, yet the sky itself remains untouched. Equanimity makes the mind like that sky, vast, open, unshaken by what passes through it. But does equanimity mean you stop feeling? Absolutely not. Equanimity deepens your feelings. It allows you to love more fully, to act more wisely, because you are not blinded by extremes. Imagine holding a child you love deeply. If you are consumed by attachment, your love is mixed with fear. Fear of losing them, fear of harm, fear of impermanence. But if you love with equanimity, you love without fear. You care deeply, but you do not cling. You understand that they are on their own journey, that they are not yours to own. Your love becomes purer, freer, because it is not chained by desperation. Equanimity also protects compassion. Without balance, compassion can burn you out. If you take on everyone's suffering without steadiness, you will drown in sorrow. But with equanimity, you care deeply and act wisely while staying rooted in peace. You help without being consumed. You give without being emptied. You love without being broken. Equanimity is the ground that allows compassion to blossom endlessly. How do we practice equanimity? The first step is awareness of change. Notice how feelings rise and fall. Notice how joy comes and goes, how pain appears and fades. Instead of clinging to one or resisting the other, watch them with calm. Say to yourself, "This too shall pass." Slowly, you begin to loosen the chains of reaction. The second step is understanding cause and effect. Everything in life arises from conditions, karma, choices, circumstances. Not everything is in your control, and not everything is your responsibility. When you understand this, you stop blaming yourself for all suffering, and you stop blaming others blindly for their pain. You see that each person is walking the path shaped by countless causes. This brings both compassion and equanimity. You help where you can, but you accept what you cannot change. The third step is practicing mindfulness in moments of challenge. When someone criticizes you, pause before reacting. Feel the heat rise, and instead of lashing out, breathe. Ask yourself, does this define me? Or is it just words passing like clouds? When success comes, pause as well. Enjoy it, but do not build your identity on it. Remind yourself, this too is impermanent. In both moments, you train your mind to remain steady, to neither grasp nor reject, but to meet life with openness. Equanimity also comes from meditation. Sit in silence, observing thoughts and emotions without judgment. You begin to see that they arise and dissolve on their own, like waves on the ocean. You do not need to chase pleasant thoughts or fight unpleasant ones. You simply watch. Over time, this practice builds the muscle of equanimity, teaching you to face the storms of daily life with the same calm awareness. Another practice is to cultivate the phrase, "May I accept things as they are." This does not mean passivity, it means clarity. Acceptance does not stop you from acting, it stops you from reacting blindly. With acceptance, you can act from wisdom rather than panic, and wisdom is always more powerful than fear. Equanimity also teaches us to release control over others. How often do we suffer because we want people to think like us, act like us, live like us? We demand they fit our expectations, and when they don't, we feel betrayed. But with equanimity, you allow others to walk their own path. You help with compassion, but you do not cling to results. You give love freely, but you do not demand it back in the same form. This freedom transforms relationships. It replaces control with respect, desperation with trust, fear with peace. Equanimity is also the shield against hatred. When someone harms you, the mind wants to retaliate, to burn with anger. But equanimity steps in and says, this person too is caught in ignorance, in suffering, in causes they may not even understand. Why should I let their darkness steal my light? Equanimity does not mean you allow harm. It means you respond without hatred. You act firmly if needed, but your heart stays free. The beauty of equanimity is that it prepares you for life's inevitable changes. When loss comes, you grieve, but you do not drown. When success comes, you celebrate, but you do not cling. When love comes, you cherish, but you do not chain. When death comes, yours or another's, you bow to it, knowing it is part of the great rhythm. With equanimity, nothing can fully break you, because you are no longer defined by gain or loss, pleasure or pain. You are defined by the stillness of your heart. In Buddhism, equanimity is often described as the highest form of love. Why? Because it loves all beings equally, without preference or attachment. Ordinary love says, I love you because you make me happy. Equanimity says, may all beings be happy, free, and at peace, whether I know them or not, whether they please me or not. This love is vast, unconditional, unshakable. It flows like sunlight, shining on everyone without discrimination. So the lesson is this: equanimity is not the end of love, but its perfection. It is love without chains, compassion without exhaustion, peace without numbness. It is the balance that allows you to stand strong in every storm, to walk lightly in every season, to remain steady when the world around you is in chaos. Equanimity is the crown jewel of inner freedom. When you cultivate it, nothing owns you, not praise, not blame, not success, not failure. You act with wisdom, you love with freedom, you live with peace. And in that unshakable balance, you discover a truth deeper than happiness. You discover serenity, the kind of serenity that no one can give you and no one can take away. The middle way, walking the path of balance. At the heart of the Buddha's awakening lies one of the simplest yet most profound truths ever spoken. Freedom is not found in extremes, but in balance. This is the middle way, a path of moderation, of harmony, of walking between the extremes of indulgence and denial, attachment and aversion, chasing and rejecting. The Buddha discovered that both overindulgence in pleasure and severe self-denial lead only to suffering. The true path lies not in running to one side or the other, but in walking steadily in the middle, where peace can finally breathe. Why is this teaching so powerful? Because our lives are often pulled apart by extremes. We chase desires with desperate hunger, or we punish ourselves with guilt and harsh discipline. We cling to success as though it will save us, or we drown in despair when it slips away. We overindulge in comfort, numbing ourselves, or we swing to the other side, denying ourselves joy in the name of control. In both cases, we are not free. We are slaves to extremes. The middle way is the escape from this prison. It teaches us to live with balance, to embrace discipline without cruelty, to enjoy pleasure without addiction, to love without chains, to let go without coldness. It is not about walking a narrow line of caution. It is about living with wisdom, knowing when to act, when to rest, when to speak, when to stay silent. The middle way is not mediocrity. It is mastery of balance. Think of a musical instrument. A string pulled too tight will snap. A string left too loose will make no sound. Only when the string is tuned to balance does it create music. Life is the same. If you live with too much tension, forcing, controlling, and chasing, you break. If you live with too much looseness, laziness, and neglect, you produce no harmony. But when you find the middle, when your heart and mind are tuned, you create the music of peace. The middle way also applies to how we relate to ourselves. Many people live in the extremes of self-judgment. On one side, there is indulgence, excusing every mistake, refusing to take responsibility, living without discipline. On the other side, there is harshness, scolding yourself for every flaw, carrying shame and guilt like heavy stones. Neither extreme brings growth. The middle way says, hold yourself accountable, but with compassion. Discipline yourself, but gently. Encourage yourself, but without arrogance. Accept your flaws, but do not worship them. This balanced approach transforms the endless war within you into peace. Buddhism teaches that suffering comes not from life itself, but from the mind's extremes, grasping and resisting. We grasp at what we want. We resist what we dislike. We cling tightly to pleasure. We push away pain. But life cannot be controlled in this way. Pleasure fades, pain comes, and in our grasping and resisting, we create double suffering. The middle way teaches us to meet both pleasure and pain with balance. Enjoy what is pleasant, but do not cling. Endure what is painful, but do not drown. In this balance, life loses its power to break you. The middle way is also the path of moderation in desire. To chase endlessly after wealth, fame, or pleasure is bondage. To reject all joy and live in self-denial is also bondage. Freedom lies in balance, using what you need, enjoying beauty when it arises, but never becoming enslaved. A simple meal, eaten with awareness, brings more peace than a feast eaten in greed. A moment of rest, taken with gratitude, brings more strength than endless indulgence in idleness. Moderation transforms the ordinary into sacred. But perhaps the most profound aspect of the middle way is how it applies to our spiritual practice. Before his enlightenment, the Buddha tried both extremes. He lived in luxury as a prince, and he practiced extreme asceticism as a seeker. Neither brought freedom. It was only when he sat under the Bodhi tree, neither indulging nor torturing himself, that awakening came. This shows us something timeless. True transformation does not come from extremes, but from steady, balanced practice. Meditation, mindfulness, compassion, wisdom all grow when we walk the middle path. Too much effort burns us out. Too little effort leaves us stagnant. The middle way sustains us. In daily life, the middle way might look like this. You work hard, but you also rest. You care for others, but you also care for yourself. You pursue goals, but you do not sacrifice your peace for them. You enjoy life's pleasures, but you are not enslaved by them. You practice discipline, but you are not cruel to yourself. You remain present in joy without clinging, and you remain steady in sorrow without despair. This balance is not perfection, it is wisdom in action. Imagine walking a path through the forest. If you rush too quickly, you stumble and miss the beauty around you. If you drag your feet and never move, you never reach anywhere. But if you walk with balance, steadily, mindfully, you enjoy the journey. You notice the trees, the sunlight, the birds, and yet you also keep moving forward. This is the middle way, the art of walking through life with awareness, enjoying each step, but not clinging to any single point. The middle way also teaches us how to live with others. Without balance, relationships swing between extremes, possessiveness on one side, neglect on the other. The middle way says, love fully, but do not cling, care deeply, but do not control, respect others' freedom, but also respect your own. In this balance, relationships thrive, because they are no longer based on fear or control, but on mutual freedom and trust. Equanimity, compassion, wisdom, all of them find their perfection in the middle way. Without balance, equanimity becomes coldness, compassion becomes exhaustion, wisdom becomes pride. But when grounded in the middle way, each of these shines. Equanimity becomes steady love, compassion becomes endless, wisdom becomes humble. Walking the middle way requires mindfulness. At every step, ask yourself, am I leaning too far into indulgence? Am I leaning too far into denial? Am I clinging too tightly? Am I rejecting too harshly? Slowly, you learn to correct your balance, like a traveler adjusting his steps. The middle way is not about being perfect. It is about returning again and again to balance. The lesson is this: freedom is not at the edge of extremes, it is in the middle. True peace is not found in chasing endlessly, nor in rejecting life. It is found in balance, between effort and rest, between giving and receiving, between joy and sorrow, between self and others. The middle way is not just a philosophy, it is the path of living wisely, gently, steadily. When you walk this path, life no longer drags you like a storm. You walk through joy without clinging, through pain without despair. You enjoy beauty without greed, endure loss without collapse. You become like a river, flowing steadily between its banks, neither flooding with excess nor drying with neglect. And in that flow, you discover what the Buddha discovered under the Bodhi tree: liberation. The middle way is not just the teaching of the Buddha, it is the heartbeat of life itself. The sun does not scorch endlessly, it balances day with night. The seasons do not freeze or burn forever, they balance in cycles. Your breath itself is the middle way. Inhale, exhale, not too much of one, not too little of the other. The universe whispers balance in every moment. To walk the middle way is to align yourself with this universal rhythm. Mindfulness, living fully awake in each moment. If the earlier lessons are like stars guiding us in the night sky, then mindfulness is the lamp we hold in our hands to light each step of the path. Without mindfulness, even the greatest wisdom remains distant, like a teaching written in a book but never lived. Mindfulness, sati, is the practice of remembering to be here, now, fully awake to what is before us. It is the art of stopping the restless running of the mind and returning home to the only moment we truly have. This one. Why is mindfulness so essential? Because the human mind is a wanderer. Left untrained, it spends most of its time trapped in the past or chasing the future. We replay old conversations, regrets, and mistakes, wishing we could change them. Or we race ahead into imagined futures, worrying about what might go wrong, fantasizing about what we will gain. In both cases, we miss the present moment. We live as ghosts, haunted by what was, distracted by what might be, never alive to what is. The Buddha taught that mindfulness is the doorway out of this ghost-like existence. When we are mindful, we anchor ourselves in the reality of now. We notice the breath entering and leaving our body. We feel the earth beneath our feet. We listen to the sound of the wind. We become aware of the rise and fall of emotions, the passing of thoughts, the movement of life around us. Mindfulness is not about changing the moment. It is about meeting it fully, without judgment, without distraction, without running away. Think of eating. Most of the time, we eat with our minds elsewhere, scrolling on a phone, worrying about tomorrow, or rushing to finish. We swallow without tasting, we chew without noticing, and the meal becomes just another task. But with mindfulness, eating becomes sacred. You look at the food and see the sun, the rain, the soil, the farmer, the countless causes that brought it to your plate. You take a bite and truly taste it. You chew slowly, aware of its texture, its flavor, its nourishment. The simple act of eating becomes meditation, gratitude, and joy. Or think of walking. Usually, walking is just a way to get from one place to another, something we do half asleep. But with mindfulness, walking becomes a practice of presence. You feel your foot touch the ground. You notice the rhythm of your steps. You breathe with awareness. Each step becomes a reminder, I am here, I am alive, I am home in this moment. A simple walk, when done mindfully, can bring more peace than hours of distraction. Mindfulness also transforms how we face emotions. Normally, when anger arises, we are swept away by it. When fear appears, we drown in it. When joy comes, we cling to it. But with mindfulness, we notice emotions as they arise. We say, anger is here, fear is here, joy is here. We observe without judgment, like watching clouds pass through the sky. This awareness creates space. Instead of being enslaved by emotions, we learn from them. We see that they come and go, that they are not permanent, not me, but passing conditions. This understanding frees us from reacting blindly. The practice of mindfulness is like holding a mirror to life. It reflects reality as it is, not as we want it to be, not as we fear it to be. And in that reflection, wisdom arises naturally. When you are mindful of your breath, you discover calm. When you are mindful of your body, you discover tension and learn to release it. When you are mindful of your thoughts, you discover their restlessness and learn to let them go. When you are mindful of life, you discover its beauty in places you had overlooked. Mindfulness also deepens compassion. When you are present with yourself, you become gentler toward your own struggles. You notice your fatigue before it becomes burnout. You hear your inner voice when it cries for rest. This self-compassion then extends outward. When you are mindful with another person, you truly listen. You hear not just their words, but the emotions beneath them. You look into their eyes and see their humanity. Mindful presence is one of the greatest gifts you can give. It tells the other, I see you, I am here with you. But mindfulness is not only for peaceful moments, it is most powerful in difficulty. When pain comes, mindfulness allows us to meet it directly instead of resisting. We breathe into the pain, observing it without labeling it as unbearable. This softens its grip. When conflict arises, mindfulness gives us a pause before reacting. In that pause lies freedom, the freedom to choose kindness instead of anger, wisdom instead of impulse. Without mindfulness, we are puppets pulled by every thought and feeling. With mindfulness, we are free to act, not just react. Science today confirms what Buddhists have known for centuries. Mindfulness reduces stress, heals the body, and strengthens the mind. But beyond these benefits, mindfulness is the foundation of spiritual awakening. The Buddha's final words were said to be, "All conditioned things are subject to decay. Strive on with mindfulness." He placed mindfulness at the heart of liberation because it is mindfulness that reveals impermanence. mindfulness that exposes clinging, mindfulness that frees us from illusion. How do we cultivate mindfulness? Begin with the breath. The breath is always with you, a natural anchor. When your mind drifts, gently return to the breath. Inhale, exhale, without forcing, without judgment. Over time, this simple practice rewires the mind toward presence. Next, practice mindfulness in daily activities. When washing dishes, just wash the dishes. Feel the water, the soap, the movement. When drinking tea, just drink tea. Smell the aroma, feel the warmth, taste each sip. When walking, just walk. These small acts of mindfulness ripple into the rest of life, training the mind to remain awake in every moment. Finally, practice mindfulness toward others. When someone speaks, give them your full attention. Put aside distractions. Listen not to reply, but to understand. This kind of listening can heal wounds more than 1,000 words. It is mindfulness in action, turning presence into compassion. The lesson is clear. Mindfulness is not a luxury, not something reserved for monks or retreat centers. It is the art of living. It is the way to taste life fully, to see its impermanence clearly, to loosen the grip of clinging, to open the heart to compassion, and to stand steady in equanimity. Without mindfulness, the teachings remain distant ideas. With mindfulness, they become living truth. To live mindfully is to awaken. It is to stop sleepwalking through life, chasing shadows of past and future, and to open your eyes to the miracle of now. Every breath is a gift, every step a miracle, every moment an opportunity to be free. The Buddha did not teach mindfulness as a technique to escape life, but as the way to embrace it fully. So let this be your practice. Whatever you are doing, do it with presence. When you breathe, breathe mindfully. When you eat, eat mindfully. When you love, love mindfully. When you suffer, suffer mindfully. For in mindfulness, you discover that life is not something to chase or escape. It is something to live, fully awake, fully alive, here and now. Wisdom, seeing reality as it truly is. At the core of the Buddhist path lies prajna, wisdom. Not wisdom as in the accumulation of information or cleverness in words, but the direct, experiential insight into the nature of reality. This wisdom is not something read in books or memorized from teachers. It is the seeing of things as they truly are, impermanent, interdependent, empty of a fixed self, yet luminous and alive. It is the kind of seeing that transforms not just your thoughts, but your entire being. Why is wisdom so essential? Because without it, we live in delusion. We mistake the temporary for permanent, the impure for pure, the unsatisfactory for fulfilling, and the non-self for self. These mistakes, called the four inversions, are the roots of suffering. We cling to what cannot last. We chase what cannot satisfy. We defend what does not truly exist. Wisdom is the eye that sees through these illusions. It is the light that dispels ignorance, the medicine that heals the sickness of craving, the compass that points us toward liberation. Think about the first inversion, mistaking the impermanent for permanent. How often do we live as though youth, health, relationships, possessions will last forever? We plan endlessly, cling tightly, and panic when change inevitably arrives. But wisdom sees clearly. Everything changes. The body ages, circumstances shift, seasons turn. This is not a tragedy, it is reality. When you see impermanence with wisdom, you stop clinging. You cherish the present, knowing it is fleeting. You love more deeply, knowing nothing can be taken for granted. Impermanence, when seen with wisdom, is not frightening. It is beautiful. It gives life its preciousness. The second inversion, mistaking the impure for pure. We live chasing pleasure, wealth, beauty, thinking they will bring lasting joy. We dress them up as pure sources of happiness. But wisdom sees These too are impermanent. These too can disappoint. Physical beauty fades. Wealth brings anxiety as much as comfort. Pleasure passes quickly. This does not mean we must reject them. It means we stop worshipping them as gods. We enjoy them when they come, but we do not build our happiness on them. With wisdom, you see their true nature, and you are free. The third inversion, mistaking the unsatisfactory for satisfying. How many times have you thought, if I just get this one thing, then I'll be happy? And how many times did that happiness fade? Wisdom shows that no external achievement, no possession, no recognition can bring permanent fulfillment. The nature of worldly things is unsatisfactory. They cannot carry the weight of our deepest longing. True satisfaction comes not from clinging outward, but from letting go inward. It comes from the stillness of the heart, from wisdom itself. The fourth inversion, mistaking the non-self for self. This is perhaps the deepest delusion. We cling to the idea of I, me, mine, as though it were solid and permanent. We say, this is my body, my mind, my identity. But wisdom sees, the body is changing, the mind is flowing, identity is constructed. There is no permanent, separate self. What we call I is a collection of conditions, thoughts, feelings, perceptions, memories, arising and dissolving moment by moment. Seeing this truth is not frightening, it is liberating. Because if there is no fixed self, then there is nothing to defend, nothing to fear losing. The chains of ego fall away. When you see reality through wisdom, suffering begins to dissolve. You no longer chase permanence where there is none. You no longer demand purity from things that cannot provide it. You no longer expect lasting satisfaction from what is temporary, and you no longer imprison yourself in the illusion of a separate self. Wisdom clears the fog of delusion, and in its place arises freedom, compassion, and peace. But wisdom is not just intellectual, it is experiential. You can read about impermanence 1,000 times, but until you sit in silence and watch your breath arise and fade, your thoughts appear and vanish, your body change from moment to moment, you do not truly know. Wisdom grows from mindfulness, from meditation, from direct observation. The Buddha did not say, "Believe me." He said, "Come and see." This is the invitation of wisdom, to see for yourself. Wisdom also grows through reflection. When challenges come, instead of reacting blindly, pause and ask, what is the truth here? What is impermanent? What am I clinging to? What is the reality beyond my story? Slowly, life itself becomes your teacher. Every joy reminds you of impermanence. Every sorrow reminds you of non-self. Every breath reminds you of interdependence. Wisdom is not hidden. It is woven into every moment. We only need to look with open eyes. Wisdom transforms how we love. Without wisdom, love becomes attachment, filled with fear and control. With wisdom, love becomes freedom. You love someone not because they complete you, but because you see their impermanence, their suffering, their humanity, and you cherish them in this moment. You stop demanding forever. You love here and now. And paradoxically, this love becomes stronger, purer, more enduring, because it is not chained by illusion. Wisdom also transforms how we see suffering. Instead of asking, "Why me?" wisdom asks, "What can this teach me?" Every difficulty becomes an opportunity to deepen understanding, to loosen clinging, to expand compassion. You begin to see suffering not as punishment, but as teacher. And when suffering teaches you, it loses its power to destroy you. Wisdom even transforms how we face death. Without wisdom, death is terrifying, the end of me. With wisdom, death is simply change, the dissolution of conditions. Just as the sunset is not the end of light, but the beginning of night, just as the leaf falling is not the end of life, but nourishment for the soil, so too death is transformation. Wisdom removes fear because it sees that nothing is truly lost, only changed. So how do we cultivate wisdom in daily life? Begin with mindfulness. Watch your body, your thoughts, your emotions without judgment. Notice their impermanence. Notice how clinging creates suffering. Notice how letting go brings peace. This simple observation, repeated daily, is the seed of wisdom. Next, practice reflection. Ask yourself, what am I holding on to that is causing pain? What illusion am I believing? What story am I adding to reality? Write, reflect, sit in silence. Wisdom grows not in distraction but in attention. Finally, learn from life itself. Watch how seasons change, how people grow, how everything arises and fades. Every moment whispers wisdom if you are quiet enough to hear. The falling rain teaches impermanence. The blooming flower teaches interdependence. The aging face teaches non-self. Life is the sutra, wisdom its verses. The lesson is this: wisdom is not something far away, hidden in sacred texts or mountains. It is here, in your breath, in your body, in your relationships, in every rise and fall of life. To live with wisdom is to see clearly, to stop mistaking shadows for substance, illusions for truth. And when you see clearly, you are free. Wisdom is the culmination of the path, but also its foundation. Without wisdom, compassion burns out. Without wisdom, equanimity becomes coldness. Without wisdom, mindfulness is just awareness without depth. But with wisdom, all these qualities shine. Compassion becomes boundless. Equanimity becomes steady love. Mindfulness becomes liberation. So, walk with wisdom. See things as they truly are, not as your desires or fears paint them. See impermanence, see non-self, see interdependence. See that clinging creates suffering and letting go creates freedom. When you live with wisdom, life no longer deceives you and death no longer terrifies you. You walk lightly, love freely, and live deeply. And in that clear seeing, you find what the Buddha found under the Bodhi tree: the end of suffering, the beginning of true freedom. Nirvana, the final freedom beyond chasing and fear. Every step on the path, letting go of desire, embracing impermanence, practicing mindfulness, cultivating compassion, balancing equanimity, and seeing with wisdom, leads to one great destination: nirvana or nibbana. The word has been spoken for over 2,500 years, often misunderstood, sometimes shrouded in mystery. But at its essence, nirvana is simple. It is the end of suffering, the extinguishing of the fires of craving, aversion, and delusion. It is the freedom that arises when the restless chase finally stops, when the illusion of me and mine dissolves, and when the heart rests in its natural state of peace. To understand nirvana, imagine a flame. A flame burns because it is fed by fuel: wood, oil, air. Without fuel, the flame cannot continue. It naturally goes out. Nirvana is like that extinguishing, not of life, but of the fires that keep us trapped in endless cycles of dissatisfaction. The fire of craving that always says, "I want more." The fire of aversion that says, "I must avoid this." The fire of delusion that says, "This is permanent, this is self, this will complete me." When these fires run out of fuel, what remains is nirvana, the coolness of peace, the clarity of truth, the freedom that cannot be shaken. Nirvana is not heaven. It is not a place, not a paradise where one enters after death. It is a state of being, here and now, available in this very life. When the Buddha described nirvana, he did not point to a distant world, but to the transformation of the heart. He said, "There is, monks, an unborn, unbecome, unmade, unconditioned. If there were not this unborn, unbecome, unmade, unconditioned, there could be no escape from the born, the become, the made, the conditioned." In these words, nirvana is the unshakable freedom beyond all conditions. But how do we taste this freedom? By gradually extinguishing the fires that bind us. Every time you let go of clinging, you taste a moment of nirvana. Every time you release anger instead of feeding it, you touch nirvana. Every time you see through illusion and rest in reality as it is, you experience nirvana. It is not far away. It is here, in the gaps between desire and release, in the pauses of the restless mind, in the stillness of a heart that no longer chases. Imagine a pond on a windy day. The water is restless, rippling, unable to reflect clearly. But when the wind stops, the surface becomes still, and in that stillness, it reflects the sky with perfect clarity. Your mind is the pond, and craving, aversion, and delusion are the winds. When they settle, the mind reflects reality as it is, luminous and peaceful. That stillness is nirvana. Nirvana also means the end of fear. Fear exists because of attachment, fear of losing what we cling to, fear of facing what we resist, fear of death because we think it is the end of me. But when you see impermanence clearly, when you understand non-self, when you release clinging, fear dissolves. What is there to lose if you never owned anything permanently? What is there to defend if there is no solid I? What is there to fear in death if life itself is change? In nirvana, fear loses its foundation, and in its place grows unshakable peace. Some people wonder, if nirvana is the extinguishing of desire, won't life become dull, empty, without passion? But the opposite is true. Desire is restlessness, the endless chase that blinds you to the present. When desire is extinguished, what remains is not dullness, but fullness. Joy no longer depends on getting what you want. It arises naturally from being alive, from breathing, from seeing clearly. Love no longer depends on possession. It flows freely, without fear. Peace no longer depends on circumstances. It is steady, like the ground beneath your feet. Nirvana is not emptiness of life, but fullness of being. Nirvana also transforms how we act in the world. A person who has touched even a glimpse of nirvana no longer acts from greed, hatred, or delusion. Their actions flow from wisdom, compassion, and peace. They do not chase endlessly, nor do they retreat into numbness. They live in the middle way, active yet at peace, compassionate yet detached, wise yet humble. Their very presence becomes a teaching, a reminder to others that freedom is possible. But nirvana is not something we can force. The harder you chase it, the further it slips away, because the chase itself is the fire of craving. Nirvana is realized not by running after it, but by letting go. By practicing mindfulness, compassion, equanimity, and wisdom, the fires slowly burn out on their own. It is like removing the wood from the fire. Once the fuel is gone, the flame naturally fades. Freedom comes not from grasping, but from releasing. The Buddha often described nirvana as the deathless. What does this mean? It means that while bodies die, forms change, and conditions pass away, the peace of nirvana is beyond death. It is not dependent on body or mind, not bound by time. It is the unshakable reality that remains when the illusions of me and mine dissolve. It is not something added to life, but the truth revealed when delusion falls away. Consider the story of a person waking from a dream. In the dream, they run desperately, chasing, fearing, clinging. Everything feels urgent, everything feels real. But then they wake up, and all the tension disappears. Nirvana is like that waking. You see that the things you once chased, the fears that once consumed you, were dreams, impermanent, insubstantial. You wake into reality, and reality is peace. So how do we walk toward nirvana in our own lives? Start with the small fires. Notice where craving burns. I must have this. I cannot be happy without it. Notice where aversion burns. I must avoid this at all cost. Notice where delusion clouds your sight. This will last forever. This will complete me. Then practice letting go, even for a moment. Each act of letting go is a step into nirvana. Practice mindfulness daily to keep your mind anchored in the present. Practice compassion to open your heart to others. Practice equanimity to remain steady in change. Practice wisdom to see clearly. Nirvana is not something that suddenly appears at the end of the path. It is present in every step you take with awareness, every act of letting go, every moment of peace you create within. The lesson is this: nirvana is not far away. It is not reserved for saints or monks in distant caves. It is here, in you, available in every breath, every moment, every choice to let go instead of cling, to trust instead of fear, to be present instead of chase. The fires of craving, aversion, and delusion may burn strongly now, but even the fiercest fire dies when it runs out of fuel. And when that fire dies, the coolness of peace, the freedom of nirvana, is revealed. This is the final freedom, the freedom that does not depend on circumstances, that cannot be taken away, that does not rise and fall with the tides of life. Nirvana is the end of chasing and the beginning of true being. It is the place where suffering ends, where love becomes boundless, where peace is unshakable. It is the awakening of the heart, the liberation of the soul, the stillness at the center of all change. Interbeing, realizing the great web of life. If you look deeply into anything, your breath, your body, the tree outside your window, you will discover something extraordinary. Nothing exists by itself. Every leaf depends on sunlight, water, soil, and countless unseen forces to be. Every breath you take depends on trees, oceans, and the vast cycles of nature. Every moment of your life is woven from causes stretching back to stars, ancestors, and unknown lives before yours. This truth is what Buddhism calls interbeing. It is the realization that nothing stands alone, that everything exists in relationship, that we are all threads in a vast and endless web of life. Most of us grow up believing the opposite, that we are separate, independent selves. We are taught, this is me, that is you, this is mine, that is yours. From this belief in separateness grows loneliness, fear, greed, and violence. If I am separate from you, then I must protect myself against you. If I am separate from nature, then I can exploit it without consequence. If I am separate from life, then death is my enemy. This illusion of separateness is the root of suffering. Interbeing is the antidote. It reveals the truth that we are not isolated islands, but waves of the same ocean. Look at a sheet of paper. At first it seems simple, but look more deeply. In that sheet of paper is the tree that gave its fibers. In that tree is the rain that nourished it, the soil that fed it, the sun that warmed it. In the rain is the cloud. In the cloud is the ocean. In the ocean is the river. In the soil is the life of countless insects, plants, and minerals. In the sun is the entire galaxy. Without the tree, no paper. Without the rain, no tree. Without the sun, no life. If you look deeply, you will see the whole universe in a single sheet of paper. This is interbeing. Everything contains everything else. Nothing exists alone. The same is true of you. You are not a separate self, floating in isolation. In you are your parents, your ancestors, the food you ate, the air you breathed, the culture that shaped you, the love and pain that taught you. Your laughter carries echoes of others. Your body carries stardust from ancient supernovas. Your being is a tapestry woven from countless threads. To say, I exist alone, is as foolish as a leaf declaring it exists without the tree. The truth is, you are. Interbeing changes how we see suffering. When we believe in separateness, we see someone else's pain as not our concern. But with interbeing we see their suffering touches us too. The child who cries from hunger is connected to us through the web of humanity. The destruction of the forest is connected to our breath. The violence in one part of the world ripples into the lives of all. This awareness awakens compassion, not as a duty but as a natural response. If the left hand is cut, the right hand does not say, "That is not my problem." It rushes to help because it knows the pain is shared. In the same way, when we realize interbeing, we cannot turn away from suffering. We act because we know we are one body. Interbeing also changes how we see joy. When someone else is happy, we no longer feel jealousy or indifference. We feel joy with them because their happiness is part of our shared web. This is called mudita, sympathetic joy. It arises naturally when you see that there is no my joy and your joy, but only the joy of life expressing itself. The laughter of a child, the growth of a tree, the healing of a community, all of it nourishes you too, because you are not separate. This truth also transforms our relationship with the earth. Modern life often treats nature as a resource to exploit, but interbeing shows us we are not separate from the earth, we are the earth. Your body is made of soil, water, air, sunlight. The destruction of rivers is the destruction of your blood. The burning of forests is the burning of your lungs. When you see this truth, environmental care stops being an external duty and becomes self-care. To protect the earth is to protect yourself, because you are not two, you are. Interbeing also dissolves fear of death. If you believe you are a separate, fixed self, then death feels like absolute annihilation. But when you see interbeing, you see that nothing truly dies, it only transforms. A cloud becomes rain, rain becomes river, river becomes tree, tree becomes fruit, fruit becomes you. When you die, you do not vanish, you transform. Your body returns to the earth, your breath returns to the sky, your love lives on in others. Death is not the end of interbeing, it is part of its flow. How do we practice interbeing in daily life? Begin by looking deeply. When you eat a meal, see the farmers, the rain, the sun, the earth, the countless hands that made it possible. Say thank you, not only with words, but with awareness. When you breathe, notice that the air is not yours alone. It is shared by all beings. When you speak, remember that your words ripple into the web of others' lives. Every action you take touches the whole. Practice also by listening deeply. When someone speaks, do not just hear their words. Hear the ancestors behind their voice, the struggles that shaped their tone, the conditions that brought them here. When you see someone, see more than their appearance. See the web of life they carry. This kind of listening transforms judgment into understanding, indifference into compassion. Most importantly, let interbeing guide your choices. When you consume, ask, how does this affect the web? When you act, ask, what ripples will this send? When you suffer, ask, who else suffers with me? When you rejoice, ask, how can I share this joy? Slowly, your life becomes aligned with the great rhythm of interbeing. You stop living as an isolated ego and begin living as part of a vast, sacred whole. The lesson is this: you are not alone. You never were. You are not separate from others, from the earth, from the universe. You are a thread in a tapestry, a wave in an ocean, a note in a symphony. To realize this is to dissolve loneliness, fear, and selfishness. It is to awaken compassion, joy, and reverence. It is to see that your life is not small and separate. It is vast and interconnected. When you understand interbeing, every action becomes sacred. Drinking water, you see the clouds. Walking on earth, you feel the ancestors. Looking at another person, you see yourself. Life becomes a meditation, a dance of connection. And in this dance, you discover the deepest truth. To be is to interbe, the art of letting life flow. There is a river inside every one of us, a current that moves through our days and nights, carrying us forward whether we notice it or not. Sometimes it rushes with energy, sometimes it slows in still pools, sometimes it winds in unexpected directions. Yet most of us spend our lives fighting this river. We try to dam it, to control its speed, to redirect it according to our plans. We cling to rocks, resist its currents, fear its rapids, and in that struggle we exhaust ourselves. Buddhism teaches that freedom is not found in fighting the river, but in learning to flow with it. The art of letting life flow is the art of aligning yourself with the natural rhythm of existence, trusting its movement and resting in its wisdom. Why do we resist life's flow? Because the mind craves certainty and control. We want guarantees that people will stay, that success will last, that health will endure, that life will unfold according to our script. But the truth is, life is not a fixed road. It is a river. It bends, it changes, it surprises. To demand certainty from a river is to live in disappointment. To let it flow is to live in peace. Consider water itself. Water is soft, yet it wears down the hardest stone. It is yielding, yet it finds its way through mountains. It takes the shape of every vessel, yet remains itself. Water does not resist gravity, it flows with it. This is the teaching of the river. Strength is not in rigidity, but in surrender. To let life flow is to become like water, adaptable, patient, persistent, and free. When you let life flow, you stop clinging to how things should be, and you begin to accept them as they are. This does not mean you become passive. It does not mean you stop acting, stop striving, or stop caring. It means you act with alignment instead of resistance. You set your sails to catch the wind instead of cursing it for not blowing in the direction you wanted. You plant seeds in the soil that exists instead of waiting for soil that never comes. You walk with the path beneath your feet instead of demanding a different one. Letting life flow also means releasing the need to control outcomes. How much suffering comes from obsessing over results? You do the work, but you want to guarantee success. You love, but you want to guarantee reciprocity. You pray, but you want to guarantee the answer. The more you demand certainty, the more restless you become. Flow says, do your part, but let go of the outcome. Water does not demand where it will end. It simply flows. And in flowing, it always finds its way. There is freedom in this surrender. When you let go of resistance, you stop exhausting yourself against what you cannot change. You conserve your energy for what you can influence, your choices, your responses, your presence. You stop being the warrior who fights the river, and you become the traveler who learns from it. Life feels lighter, not because circumstances are easier, but because you are no longer dragging them against their nature. The art of flowing also teaches patience. A river does not reach the sea in a single rush. It meanders, it pauses, it circles, it takes time. We live in an age of urgency, where everything is measured in speed, achievement, progress. But growth, healing, and wisdom have their own rhythm. A flower blooms not by being pulled open, but by unfolding in its season. A child grows not by being rushed, but by moving through stages. In the same way, your journey has its own timing. To flow is to trust that timing, to release the anxiety of being late or behind. You are always where you need to be, because this moment is the only one that truly exists. Letting life flow also reshapes how we handle pain. When suffering comes, our instinct is to resist it, to push it away, to deny it. But resistance only deepens suffering. Flow teaches us to meet pain with acceptance. This too is part of the river. Pain, like joy, flows through. It is not permanent. It does not define you. It is not the whole of life. By allowing it to flow instead of fighting it, you lessen its weight. You learn that even the darkest waters carry you forward, that even in suffering there is movement toward healing. The practice of mindfulness is the key to flowing. By paying attention to each moment without judgment, you step out of resistance and into alignment. When you breathe mindfully, you flow with your breath. When you walk mindfully, you flow with your steps. When you face difficulty, you flow with awareness instead of panic. Mindfulness is like dipping into the river with open hands, feeling its coolness, trusting its current. Flow also means embracing uncertainty. The mind wants maps, guarantees, destinations. But the river does not show its entire course. It reveals itself bend by bend. Life is the same. You do not need to know the whole journey. You only need to be present for the next step, the next breath, the next turn. Trust that the river knows its way, even when you cannot see the sea. But perhaps the deepest gift of flowing is joy. When you stop resisting, you begin to notice the beauty of the river itself. The sparkle of sunlight on the water, the songs of birds along its banks, the quiet of still pools, the exhilaration of rapids. Life becomes less about the destination and more about the journey. You discover happiness not in controlling the river, but in moving with it. How do we practice letting life flow each day? Start by noticing where you resist. Do you cling to a plan that keeps failing? Do you hold on to a relationship that has already shifted? Do you demand perfection from yourself or others? See these places of resistance. Then breathe. Ask yourself, what if I let this flow? What if I allowed this moment to be as it is? Even a small release creates spaciousness. Next, trust the rhythm of life. When something ends, let it end. When something begins, welcome it. When something pauses, allow the stillness. Stop forcing doors to open that are meant to stay closed. Stop clinging to doors that are meant to close. Flow is about trusting that every opening, every closing, every pause is part of the larger journey. Finally, live lightly. Flow means carrying fewer burdens, fewer grudges, fewer rigid expectations, fewer demands. When you let go of what weighs you down, you move more freely with the current. You realize you do not need to control the river. You only need to ride it with awareness, gratitude, and trust. The lesson is this: peace is not found in damming the river of life, but in flowing with it. Strength is not in control, but in surrender. Joy is not in reaching the sea, but in traveling the waters with open eyes and open heart. To let life flow is to release the endless fight and discover the freedom that was always here. So trust the current. Let go of the rocks. Rest in the water that carries you. The river knows its way, and so does life. When you stop resisting, you will find that you were never lost. You were always being carried home. In a world that never stops speaking, silence feels like an absence, a void to be filled. We run from it, drown it with noise, and fear what it might reveal if we sit still long enough. Yet in Buddhism, silence is not emptiness, but fullness. It is not absence, but presence. It is the place where the heart rests, where the mind clears, where wisdom is heard. Silence is not a lack of sound, it is the gateway to freedom. Why do we fear silence? Because silence shows us ourselves. In the quiet, the noise of the world fades, and what remains are our own thoughts, emotions, and truths. Many people cannot bear this encounter. They fear their regrets, their anxieties, their loneliness. So they cover silence with constant distraction, music, conversations, endless screens. But avoidance is not peace. True peace comes only when you walk into silence, sit with yourself, and learn that the mind's noise is not who you are. The Buddha himself often retreated into silence. In forests, under trees, in caves, he discovered that silence is not isolation, but connection. When you enter silence, you are no longer separated from life by words and noise. You hear the wind as it is. You feel the breath as it is. You notice the heartbeat of the earth. Silence is the bridge back to reality. Think of a pond. When the surface is stirred by constant ripples, you cannot see into its depth. But when the water is still, the bottom becomes clear. Your mind is the same. As long as it is stirred by endless thoughts, judgments, and chatter, you cannot see deeply. But in silence, the mind stills, and in that stillness, wisdom appears, clear, steady, luminous. Silence also teaches humility. Words often inflate the ego, making us feel clever, superior, or defensive. But silence dissolves that mask. In silence, you do not need to prove, to argue, to perform. You simply are. And in that being, you discover a deeper truth, that your worth is not in words, not in labels, not in achievements, but in the simple fact of existence. Silence strips away illusion and returns you to essence. Silence is also the soil of compassion. When you are quiet, you truly listen. Most of the time, we do not listen. We prepare to reply, to defend, to insert ourselves. But when you listen in silence, you hear not just words, but hearts. You hear the suffering beneath anger, the longing beneath complaints, the humanity beneath differences. True listening heals, and true listening is born from silence. Practicing silence does not mean escaping the world forever. It means carving out moments each day to return to stillness. Sit in meditation, even for 10 minutes, and let the noise of the mind settle. Walk without speaking, noticing the trees, the air, the steps. Eat one meal in quiet, savoring every bite. These small silences become anchors of peace in the storm of life. But silence is not only external, it is internal. You can be in a quiet room yet still noisy within, your thoughts racing. Inner silence means letting thoughts pass without clinging, letting emotions rise and fall without judgment. It is not about stopping the mind. That is impossible. It is about no longer being enslaved by it. Inner silence is the spaciousness where thoughts come and go like clouds in the sky, while you rest in the vastness of awareness. This silence reveals something extraordinary. Underneath the noise of craving, fear, and illusion, there is a natural peace already within you. You do not create it. It is your true nature. Like a clear sky hidden by clouds, your peace is always there. Silence does not invent peace, it uncovers it. Silence also connects you to interbeing. When you are quiet, you hear the symphony of life, the wind in the trees, the song of birds, the hum of insects, the rhythm of your breath. You realize that silence is not empty, it is full of life, and in that fullness you feel your connection to everything. Words separate, but silence unites. Yet silence is not easy. At first, it may feel uncomfortable, even painful. Your mind will resist, filling the quiet with restless chatter. This is normal. Do not fight it. Sit with it. Breathe with it. Slowly, like muddy water settling, the noise will quiet. And in that stillness, you will find clarity. The lesson of silence is this. You do not always need answers, explanations, or noise. Sometimes you need stillness. In silence, you remember who you are. In silence, you touch the freedom that no words can describe. In silence, you awaken. So make space for silence. Each day, step away from the noise, even for a moment. Sit under a tree. Close your eyes. Breathe. Let the river of life flow without interruption. Let the heart rest. Let the mind clear. In silence, you will find what chasing cannot give you, what words cannot explain, what possessions cannot provide. You will find yourself, and in finding yourself, you will discover that you were never lost. You were simply drowned in noise. Silence is the gateway to inner freedom. Walk through it, and you will enter the home you have always carried within. 24. Gratitude, the alchemy of the heart. If silence is the doorway to peace, then gratitude is the light that fills the room. Gratitude is often spoken of as a virtue, a polite acknowledgement of kindness, or a moment of saying thank you. But in Buddhism, gratitude is far more than courtesy. It is a way of seeing, a way of living, a transformation of the heart. Gratitude is alchemy, the ability to take the ordinary moments of life, the struggles, the joys, even the sorrows, and turn them into gold. Why is gratitude so powerful? Because the mind, left untrained, always looks to what is missing. It says, I will be happy when I get this, when I fix that, when tomorrow arrives. It forgets what is already here, already given, already blessing us. This endless hunger creates suffering. Gratitude is the antidote. It shifts the gaze from what is absent to what is present, from what is lacking to what is abundant. In that shift, peace blooms. Consider the breath. How many times today have you noticed it? Yet it has carried you since birth, every moment, without asking for thanks, without failing you. To live with gratitude is to see each breath as a gift, each heartbeat as a miracle. Life itself is a blessing so constant that we forget to marvel at it. Gratitude wakes us up. Gratitude also changes our relationship with suffering. Pain is inevitable. Loss, illness, disappointment, endings. Without gratitude, suffering feels like only darkness. But gratitude teaches us to see even in sorrow. It whispers, "This pain teaches me patience. This loss reminds me to cherish. This ending opens the way for beginning." Gratitude does not deny suffering, it transforms it, revealing the seeds of wisdom hidden inside. This is why gratitude is called alchemy. It turns wounds into lessons, obstacles into teachers, daily routines into sacred rituals. Washing dishes becomes gratitude for water, for food, for hands that can move. Waiting in traffic becomes gratitude for roads, for vehicles, for the chance to reflect. Even tears become gratitude for the depth of love that made them possible. With gratitude, nothing is wasted, everything nourishes. Gratitude is also the foundation of compassion. When you see how much you have received, the love of others, the care of strangers, the gifts of earth, you naturally want to give. Gratitude dissolves pride, the illusion that I did this all myself. It reminds you that your life is woven from countless kindnesses. The food you eat was planted, harvested, and delivered by hands you may never meet. The clothes you wear were made by countless workers, machines, and elements of nature. The very language you speak was given by generations before you. Gratitude shows you nothing you have is only yours. Everything is shared, borrowed, gifted, and from this realization flows compassion, a desire to give back what you have received. In Buddhism, gratitude is closely tied to mindfulness. To be grateful, you must first notice. Notice the sound of rain, the smile of a stranger, the taste of tea, the comfort of shelter. Gratitude grows from attention. The more mindful you are, the more reasons you find to be grateful. Gratitude and mindfulness are like two wings of a bird. Together, they lift you into peace. Gratitude also dissolves envy. Envy says, "Why do they have more than me?" Gratitude says, "I already have more than enough." Envy blinds us to our blessings. Gratitude restores our sight. When you live with gratitude, you stop comparing because you see that your life is already rich in its own way. But how do we practice gratitude deeply beyond words? One way is reflection. Each day pause and ask, what am I grateful for right now? At first, answers may be obvious: food, family, health. But look deeper. Be grateful for difficulties that taught you strength. Be grateful for mistakes that made you wiser. Be grateful even for impermanence, because it makes every moment precious. With practice, you realize that everything, pleasant or painful, can be met with gratitude. Another practice is to express gratitude outwardly. Tell people you appreciate them. Thank them not just for what they do, but for who they are. Gratitude unspoken is like a lamp hidden under a cloth. When you share it, you spread light. Gratitude strengthens relationships, softens conflicts, heals wounds. It reminds others that they too are seen and valued. Gratitude can also be practiced in silence. Sit quietly, breathe, and reflect on the countless conditions that allow this moment. The earth beneath you, the air around you, the beating of your heart. Let gratitude fill you without needing words. This silent gratitude is powerful. It transforms not just your thoughts, but your entire energy. People around you feel it, even without being told. The lesson of gratitude is this: life is not something to take for granted. Every moment is borrowed, every gift is temporary, every blessing is fragile. Gratitude teaches us to cherish now before it passes. It turns life from a race into a treasure, from a burden into a miracle. So live with gratitude. Thank the morning for light, the evening for rest, the breath for carrying you, the people for walking with you. Thank even the challenges for shaping you. Gratitude is not the denial of life's struggles. It is the recognition that even within them, life is giving you something valuable. When you live this way, peace does not depend on what you gain or lose. Joy does not depend on circumstances. Gratitude anchors you in abundance, no matter what comes. And in that abundance, you discover freedom, not because life is perfect, but because you no longer need it to be. Gratitude is the alchemy of the heart. It transforms everything it touches. It turns scarcity into abundance, pain into wisdom, ordinary days into sacred gifts. It is not waiting for more. It is seeing the miracle in what already is. And when you see this miracle, you stop chasing endlessly. You begin to live. Across all these lessons, a single thread runs quietly but powerfully. Suffering arises when we chase, when we cling, when we resist the truth of life. And freedom begins the moment we learn to let go, to accept, to see clearly, to love without fear. We began with desire, the restless hunger that never ends, and we discovered how letting go frees us from endless disappointment. We walked through impermanence, learning that change is not our enemy, but our greatest teacher. We explored non-attachment, emptiness, compassion, equanimity, and mindfulness, each one peeling away another layer of illusion. We saw wisdom not as cleverness, but as clear seeing. We touched nirvana, the extinguishing of the fires that keep us bound. We opened our hearts to interbeing, realizing that we are not separate, but woven into the great web of life. Finally, we learned the art of flowing, the courage to trust the river of existence instead of fighting against it. Together, these teachings point to a simple truth. Everything comes when you stop chasing. Peace comes when you stop running. Love deepens when you stop clinging. Joy arises when you stop demanding. Freedom begins when you stop pretending to control what cannot be controlled. The Buddha's path is not about becoming someone else. It is about remembering who you already are, spacious, luminous, free. It is about stripping away the noise of craving, fear, and illusion until only your true nature remains, still, compassionate, wise. So as you step away from these words and back into the rhythm of your own life, carry this with you. You do not need to chase peace. It is already here. You do not need to grasp at happiness. It is already within you. You do not need to fear the river of life. It is already carrying you exactly where you need to go. Pause, breathe, trust, let go, flow. When you live this way, you discover that the journey itself is the destination, that every step, every breath, every moment is the path. And in that realization, you finally come home, not to a place outside, but to the peace that has always lived inside you.